There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
But since we can't sit next to one another, I was thinking about the first break, toasting my English muffin and saying, hey, it's English muffin time during the starting five.
And Moulton.
Love BOGO English muffins. You throw one on the counter, you throw the other in the freezer.
There you go.
For a week, then you take it out. When you've got BOGO, it's like, hey,
knock yourself out.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Yes! Oh, I like it.
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
How the heck are you, Miller and Moulton, on this Thursday, the 16th of July? Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming once again, millerandmoulton.com. Broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can always chime in on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551, 479-5551. Top of the morning to you, Mark. How are you?
Good morning, David. I'm well. Had a nice Wednesday. It's kind of my day. Got to play a little golf. Played a course I have never played before.
You didn't go to the old stomping ground.
No, we're closed. Little summer beautification project. It's that thing around here in the summer. Courses close. They punch 2 or 3 times in the summer. And you verticut the tees and collars and all that kind of great stuff. So
a beautification project? Is that what they're selling?
No.
Is that their story?
It's just summer. Every course down here closes down they aerate the course and they do different work. That's all. Our place is closed for a week. So we played Cypress Lake. A group of us went over there. I'd never played it. Fun course. Apparently it's the best golfers in Southwest Florida. As far as a club, if you were to have the best group of players at any club in Southwest Florida, it's not close. It's Cypress Lake. They've probably got 100 single-digit handicappers there.
That was Patty Berg's old.
It's been there forever. Yeah, it's a great little golf course. It's just I don't get out much. So I did get in my previous golf life, in the Everblades life, most of my golf was played south of then Tico Arena, now Hertz Arena.
Right.
There's one in the middle there. But most of my golf then, if I went to play, I'd go south.
Right, corkscrew on south.
Right, didn't go north a lot. That's where my invites were. So it was fun to play somewhere different. It is interesting going out and how every place is a little different. For instance, our golf course, there are no rakes. There are no water cups. You're on your own, pretty much. At Cypress Lake, they had their snack bar open. They had water on the course. They had rakes, which was unusual for those of us who haven't seen a rake on a golf course. And I'll go, wow, look at them.
Well, that must be nice. I mean, I'd hate to get in a bunker and be just in the middle of madness.
They've pretty much allowed, the local rule has been, since you don't have rakes, that you can, if you're in someone's footprint or whatever, just kind of a local rule right now, because they don't want people.
So it's the Patrick Reed rule? Is what you were saying?
Yes, it is the Patrick Reed rule.
Right, local and Patrick Reed rule.
Right, move your ball in the bunker whenever you want.
Right. You know what? And it is great to play a course you've never played before, except there's usually one shot in a round in which, if you had played the course before, even once before, all right, you would know that a certain yardage might not be a true yardage, or you might know that this plays shorter. And so, you might have a good little stretch going and you get to this certain hole, and this is where you need somebody in the group to go, hey, just so you know, this hole plays a little shorter. Okay, you may want to one club down it here. Okay, I have found that the 150, I don't know if it's really 150. And instead, I always found that when I played a course for the first time, there was always one shot in the round, which would cost me 1 or 2 shots.
I think that's fair. I will say, David, you show how long it's been since you've actively played golf when you talk about the 150 marker.
Well,
because but I mean, it's, and I'm not being smart. It shows because it's the one excuse we don't have anymore. Everybody's got a rangefinder in their bag, and wherever you are, you pretty much have exact yardage everywhere now.
Yeah, and I hate those things.
I
absolutely hate them.
Yeah, well, I mean, step it off because it doesn't quicken anything up.
Well, I mean, I'll say this: I'm a fan of most of what Jack says about golf versus tournament golf. Jack's feeling is we need to make golf as accessible, affordable, and fun to as many people as possible. All right. And that's why Jack's throwing out a bunch of things, 3 sixes instead of 2 nines, making the hole a little bit bigger.
Right.
He doesn't have a problem. Technology for clubs and balls, could care less. Wants you to hit it as far as you can. If you're just, 10 handicapper, knock yourself out. Play as fast as you can, have as much fun as you can, keep coming back for more. But then what they do, it's different. That's totally different world. Okay? The courses should be different. The rules should be different, the whole thing. And, I'm open to that.
Okay. I'm not sure what that has to do with the laser finder. The one thing I will say about Jack, and I've always said this when you bring it up, he is single-handedly responsible for slowing the game of golf down more than any other person on the planet alive today. So when Jack starts talking about speeding the game up, Jack, you're the reason the game's so damn slow. Don't talk to me about a bigger hole. Talk to me about moving your ass a little faster from shot A to shot B. Because that's the problem.
Jack's was the first, okay? But Jack hasn't played tournament golf, all right, for over a generation, basically. So it's tough to blame the current plight on him, okay? Because they've had plenty of time to correct it. And one of the things that has happened during this fanless PGA Tour season in the last 5 weeks is pace of play is much better. And they think it has to do with not having to wait for the fans' applause to die down, this, that, and the other thing. Morikawa openly talked about, I don't know if I make that 25-footer on top of JT if we have fans. He said, if for no other reason, I got to wait 2 or 3 minutes for everything to calm down before I can get into what I got to do.
We said that earlier. I'm glad he said it because it wasn't like he had to make a 12-footer. It was a 25-foot putt. And you're right. The roar that would have come after the 50-foot dunk by JT would have been 2 or 3 minutes. You're right. I agree. Like I said that already. There's no way he makes it. But I just have an issue with the guy who slowed the game down telling everybody how they need to speed it up now. I just find it just a touch hypocritical, David.
Well,
and I will say the one thing about the sixes I find a joke. Look, what's happened is that no one can play golf unless they play 18 holes anymore. The days of going out and playing 9, the courses don't really want it. They don't charge that way. So there's more to it than the 3 sixes I think is ridiculous. But I do think going out and playing, you and I are both from the north. You raced home in the summertime after work to go get 9 in.
Absolutely. In fact, you had 9-man hole leagues, all right, in which guys raced 5 o'clock and they raced to the club, and basically you played from 6 to 8.
Right.
All right. And you played your 9. And I don't know how, your league did it, but our league was basically, hey, first one's there. If you're there and you're ready to go, go. Good. You guys want to tee off at 5:30? Go. 5:40? Go. Let's get this in.
Yeah, I never played in any because I left the north before I was an adult. I never was up there for a summer where I was playing 9-hole leagues. I played competitive junior golf and then moved for the most part. But yes.
But the reason I mentioned Jack was old school thinking versus new school thinking. And yeah, I don't like the rangefinder, if you will, but I do believe that it's something that for us, for us amateurs, like I'm okay if we draw a line on the ball, so to speak. I don't think they should be allowed to on tour. Okay, I don't. I just think that that's another way. Cheat's too strong a word, but it's too much of a help, quite frankly.
And I think you could equate it, when you're on the range, you're allowed to have an aide line you up. A lot of people will actually carry, I have one in my bag, one of the, I don't know, those little poles, little sticks that you line up for your alignment. If you're hitting the ball a little squirrely on the range, you can put something there to make sure your feet are aligned to see where you're hitting the ball. Well, you can't use that on the course, obviously. That's against the rules.
Right. They really frown on that.
But David, it's if you take it, I don't think you have to make that much of a stretch. That device for lining up your feet and that long Sharpie line on your ball aren't that far off. Yet one's legal and one isn't.
Correct.
I mean, that I will say. Now, as far as the rangefinders, they can't use them on tour.
No, they can't.
But they use them on Wednesday and Tuesday.
Yes, they do.
Not necessarily in the practice round, but the caddies are out there marking, going to spots, finding out how far to the front of the green, finding out how far to the back of the green. Those things go on. They just can't use them in the round. I mean, I just think, look, it speeds up play. How far am I? I don't have to go look for a marker.
And I didn't expect to get here this quickly in the show. But did you catch DeChambeau's comments? I don't know if they were made yesterday or if they were made Tuesday. I think they were made Tuesday because he played a 9-hole. He played 9 holes with Tiger on Tuesday. And first off, did you see his quotes?
I did not.
He was trying to be as respectful and as much reverence as possible for Tiger. Yet he talked about how old he is, and he talked about him almost in the past. It was hysterical. He's trying to be gracious. And he's going, for as old as the guy is, he really does hit it a long way. I mean, he was talking about Tiger the way that we would talk about the senior citizen at the club, where a bunch of middle-aged guys play together. They end up pairing up with a guy who's 70, okay, in which they go, let me tell you, okay, I know he played for one group of tees above us, but, I mean, he was hitting it with us all day. I mean, that's how DeChambeau was talking about Tiger. It was hysterical. But he said something, which I think if he's going to carry this out, I'm telling you, it will do more to bring about a change to golf equipment than anything that anyone has said or done throughout the history of the sport. Somebody asked him about his length and how he's playing certain holes, and somebody said, so how are you going to play 13 at Augusta? And he said, well, I'm basically just going to rip it as far down 14 as possible. And I figure if he really does that, once that happens, change is coming to the sport. Because if you start messing with how they play Augusta and how they play the back 9 at Augusta, okay, it's one thing for Tiger to have been hitting 7 irons through wedges into everything in 1997. Okay, and they marveled at his length the way we marveled at Daly and what he did to Crooked Stick in 91. You start literally playing the holes differently. No, I understand the fairways here and you bend it around the thing and what have you. I'm just going to blow it over the trees on the right side.
But there are trees on the left. 14. There's water on the left. And if I just bang it over these trees, I'm in the middle of another fairway looking back with nothing more than an 8-iron in my hand. Oh,
exactly. Exactly. And so when he said that, I thought to myself, well, this will be the last year the ball goes this far.
It's the first time I've ever been able to compare myself to Bryson because I do that a lot, David. The problem is I'm not trying to hit it in the fairway that I hit. Right. I did it yesterday. I cleared water and ended up in the fairway of the hole coming back. It didn't hurt my hole at all, but I was not intending, David, to hit the ball in that fairway.
All right, everybody, just raise your hand if you're already in your car or if you're walking about your house or what have you. You don't have to raise it all the way up in the air to draw attention to yourself. But Is there a hole on your course, your favorite course, in which you are so often in the other fairway, you've got the yardage and the club down because you are in that fairway playing the other hole so often, you've just got it down. Everybody now laughs about it on the tee, in which it's like, well, you're going to be over in that fairway again, and you know it's 7-iron from there. And then sure enough, you hook it over there again, and everybody laughs.
David, I have blocked it so badly on one hole on our course so often. The 7th hole, for whatever reason, it's a difficult hole. It's a difficult hole, but it shouldn't be. But it's a little tight drive, and it freaks me out off the tee. The 6th fairway is quite a bit to the right. I mean, there is a waste area, water, trees, muck, that you have to hit it over to. I mean, you've got to really block it to get it over there. I've done it a few times. And the rangefinder is of no value on that side because you cannot see through the trees to the green. So you just have to kind of guess.
We're talking Ian Baker Finch off the first tee at St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Okay. Who had it going so badly for those, and I know there are a few people listening who have actually played it, but 1 and 18 are side by side, and they call it the widest fairway in golf because you can hit it, you can snap hook it, and you'll still be in the other fairway. He apparently hit one OB off the first hole to the left.
Yeah,
and he did it in the Open Championship, and they say, and this is a guy who's won the Open Championship, and they say it has to go down as the worst tee shot in the history of tournament golf.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about 100 yards, they say, left. That's how far left you got to be OB.
Yeah, I've done those. I have those shots, David. It can get squirrely.
When you play number 7, you are every other time always playing it from number 6.
No, probably 1 in 10 because it's really got to be bad to block it there. But I've done it. And I've made a birdie from over there, which is the most impressive part.
Thank you, Mr. DeChambeau.
Right.
Okay, that's the thing. I'm telling you, they're going to lose their mind. He starts playing a couple of holes, all right, and he plays them differently than anyone ever has. I understand Augusta's not part of the PGA Tour and this, that, and the other thing, but the influence that they can have, okay? I mean, Mark, listen, if any group of people would do it, if DeChambeau goes out and turns their beloved course into the par 3 course from a length standpoint, I mean, it's their tournament. It is separate from the whole rest of the sport. They could get away with saying different equipment when you play here, boys.
Or a different ball.
Yeah.
I mean, simply check in, and here's your ball that you're using for our tournament. And the players wouldn't say a word. Because if you did it at the U.S. Open or the PGA or the Open Championship, first off, they'd never do it on tour. But if you did it at the majors are the only event you could get away with this. Or if they wanted to say at a Ryder Cup, we're going to experiment in the Ryder Cup and we're going to use a certain classification of ball, they could do it. But outside of those events, it is impossible to see this happening without a lot of legislation inside of the tour. The Masters could just walk up and say, hey, we're playing this ball. We worked with Titleist. In fact, we worked with Titleist. We worked with Callaway. We worked with TaylorMade, and they all made the ball. It would be tested beforehand by players. They'd know. They'd come there and show up, and they'd say, here you go. Use these.
Right.
Now, the only thing I will say, David, as I was going through it, it's hard. I've been there, but I'm trying to do the course quickly in my head. I don't know of any other place where you could blow it into another fairway, per se, to do that.
Well, you could at some tour events.
No, and they do. I'm talking about Augusta. Other than DeChambeau doing that on 13, it's not like you can do it anywhere else there.
No, I mean...
And besides, they're buying that land behind 4 so that they can make 5 even longer, right?
Yeah, because one of the toughest holes on the course apparently is not tough enough. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. Of all the holes that don't necessarily need the length, okay, I could argue this one's just fine the way it is. This one is held up. Okay,
we are going to make you hit long irons into this impossible green.
Right, a green, by the way, that was never built to accept the long iron, and yet you are insistent on a long iron still being hit into this damn near two-tiered green. All right, good. So, but Shane Bacon was the one that said, listen, it's one thing for you to go out and turn a 7,400-yard Donald Ross design into your local muni. They'll let you destroy all those courses. But if you're going to do the same thing, okay, to Augusta National Golf Club, nuh-uh. That's where this sport's going to draw the line. I think he's right. But if you get a chance, all right, and the Memorial gets underway in a little more than an hour, and there are some fabulous pairings. I mean, if you're into golf, whether you're streaming it, whether you're watching it this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon, there are some great featured groups that they have put together. It's Tiger's first tournament since the PGA Tour has resumed play last month. And by all indications, he looks really good.
I wish they would have paired him with Bryson.
I do too.
One, they like one another. They play practice rounds together. But the fact that Bryson basically called Tiger a has-been, it would have been interesting to see those two play for 2 straight days. He tried to do it in a nice way, but
yes.
Tiger has a little bit of Jordan in him. In that I think Tiger's going to look at those quotes and go, are you kidding me?
Right.
Are you effing kidding me?
Right.
He should just thank me for all the money he's making and shut up. I mean, there's got to be somewhere inside of Tiger that he's going to read that and go, dude.
Well, there'll be a point in this tournament, if he gets off to a really good start, I mean, he may even throw it into his post-round press conferences, which he goes, for an old guy, I hit the ball really well today. And a couple of those lines, and that's his way of letting DeChambeau know, dude, who the do you think you are?
And Bryson, remember, at some point, fans will be back, and they don't like you. They love me.
But it's just so funny how DeChambeau is just, and he's desperately trying to be gracious. All right, he is, saying all sorts of terrific things about Tiger. But the money quotes were, well, at his age, all right, and then, it's fairly long for a guy his age. And also talked about him, used had before instead of has. And, it's kind of like he's still alive. B, you just played 9 holes with him.
He's the defending Masters
champion. Right. Hello. I mean, dude.
What am I missing here, David?
I don't even think you have a top 10 at a major yet. I mean,
I know
X-nay, the has-a.
I know you're the flavor of the month, Bryson, but win a major and then let's talk. I mean, even Koepka doesn't say crap like that, and he's won 4.
No, right. I mean, you're the flavor of the month, but he's Baskin Robbins, okay? He's got them all. I mean, take it easy, dude.
We got a pretty good show today, and we are basically talking NFC East football because that's where all the stories are. There was a time that Redskins versus Cowboys just meant great football, David. For a decade, you and I watched that. Now, well, drama on top of drama. Les Carpenter covers the Redskins for the Washington Post. He will join us in the 7 o'clock hour. Obviously, there's a new name coming, but there's all kinds of stories. Possibility of stories, rumors of stories coming out of Washington. We'll try to get to the bottom of it.
We'll try.
They fired everybody, and everybody that wasn't fired quit.
Right. 2 top of the organization executives were fired, and don't know if it's connected or not, but a longtime play-by-play guy who's also hosted, events that they do and what have you. He, by the way, retired on the cusp of the season starting yesterday and didn't make it sound like it was for health reasons. So, and then there are rumors, big rumors. And if you're on Twitter, the national sports media has been saying for about 36 hours now, a huge, and I've even seen it described as disgusting and disturbing story is going to be in the Washington Post reportedly today, involving the Redskins franchise. And that's all that members of the media will say. in this day and age, Mark, of wanting to be first on everything. Okay. These reporters have gotten bits and pieces of this story, but they don't have it and they don't have it sourced. So they can't, quote unquote, report it, or they refuse to. And they're going to just wait for the Washington Post to drop their supposed bombshell story later today.
And Michael Gelkin covers the Cowboys. Where are we with the Dak story?
Nowhere. Back to you in the studio. No?
That's about right.
The starting five is next. Thanks so much for being with us, Miller and Moulton. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
So, who went out and took a look at the space station last night?
It's fun. It's the best.
Anyone? Bueller?
Not me.
9:14 last night. It zipped right above us.
I would not think about ripping him.
It was over Orlando at like 9:14. So we went out, looked, you could see it. I'm like, oh, yep, there it is. All of a sudden, it looked like a plane just scooting way, way up in the, or a shooting star, if you will. But it was kind of, I'm like, oh, that's it. That's cool. That's all I got.
Okay. Did you need binoculars or anything, or could you see it?
No, you could see it with the naked eye.
Okay.
Poll question.
Hardee's presents the new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger.
If you don't play this year, should you get paid?
Broiled beef, crispy bacon and onion rings, and topped with tangy barbecue sauce.
No?
But we
No, I like it.
Just throwing it out there.
Does it need 3 answers?
We took a burger that was already delicious and spiced it up.
Yes, no, depends on the reason.
Explain it, because jalapenos sound like this.
I was going to say yes, no, pre-existing, yes, pre-existing, something about, because like the Deladon is the, I think the basis of this, at least the start, because that one's making the most news.
Yeah, I still don't think she should be paid, though, even with the pre-existing condition. I mean, if you can't play, you can't play. Get it? I mean,
no, David, I don't think you should get paid either.
How about, should the third option be something about no, but you'll get service time? See, I'd be willing to, that would be where I would compromise. Like, I'm not paying you. You're not playing. I'm not paying you. Okay? One or the other, by the way, you choose. You want to get paid or you want the service time? But there's no way you get both.
Well, that's an interesting proposition, though, because service time's a free agency thing, right?
In all sports. Yep. Mm-hmm. So which do you want? You want the money or you want the time?
But it doesn't take it. Does it take a year off your contract? Like, I'm trying to get what you're saying. So if I have a 5-year contract, and this is year 3 of my 5-year contract, I don't get paid, but I've now moved into year 4 of my contract, is what you're saying.
For next year, correct.
No, I got you. All right.
When you come back next year, you'll have 2 years left.
Like I said, I didn't want to. I don't know. Just I like it. I'd be fascinated to how we answer that here, because I can't imagine a soul out there would want to pay these people. I mean, we all work for a living.
I got it.
I like the question. I'm not against it. I just.
Do you think college football should have a commissioner? That's the big push. Scott Strickland, the AD of Florida, apparently in an interview yesterday said he thinks college football needs a commissioner. Because remember, we're not asking if it's going to have one. We'd just be asking, should they have one?
Right.
When you think of air conditioning companies, we hope you'll think of Kobe Cooling. No nonsense, no pressure. We're the company your neighbors use. License CICO 57313.
Of course, my joke could then be, well, it'll give somebody for the student athletes to negotiate with. But
looking for a frameless shower door?
It's really a good line, David.
Just opened their 8th floor.
It's really a good line.
Conveniently located in Cape Coral. With more than 75,000 frameless shower doors installed, no one has more experience and
I like both of them.
Reviews than
yeah, so think about it.
We've been named number
I
1
like
by
both
readers
of them.
The News Press and Naples News for 17 consecutive years and have just been named as Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. Want to see more? Go to myshowerdor.com.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times,
did you see that the kid that went to the G League is getting $500,000?
The single greatest issue for guys with low.
So that's how much they're allowed to pay him?
Well, I just saw that.
Like $1. I thought it was like $1.25.
I did too, David, but
Many are grumpy when
I don't know if it's in set. I don't know how it's working, but report Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga
because I got it in
is
my starting
expected
five.
to be in the $500,000 range. Sources tell the Athletic and Stadium.
Is it because it's a multi-year deal, or? So, because I got it in my starting five.
Here it is: Kuminga, 500,000. Jalen Green, 500,000. Isaiah Todd, 250, and Deshaun Nix, 300.
Okay.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Sign up for them. It's easy, and they're free. So, hot steaming deal. 479-5551 is the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. When we come up with our poll question in the next 20 minutes, go to millerandmoulton.com to vote. And also go to millerandmoulton.com if you miss any part of the show to download our Connecticut cast. Every hour of the show has its own podcast brought to you by Connecticut, SWFL.com. They have great summer deals every single summer, and Miller and Moulton cannot advocate on behalf of Connecticut enough because we're both customers, and we were customers before they became sponsors. Connecticut, the best damn water that we have ever had. 28 minutes before 7, time now for
The starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton's starting five. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Well, 4 o'clock yesterday, Mark, was drop dead date and time for players and their NFL teams to work out a long-term deal to avoid playing this year on the franchise tag. And the Tennessee Titans and running back Derrick Henry did just that. They just beat the deadline. They worked out a 4-year, $50 million deal. The first 2 years and $25.5 million of it is fully guaranteed. So the Titans, after that, they can just go year to year. So I think that's a good deal for both parties. I think it's reasonable. Quite frankly, it makes him a top 5 paid running back, and they're only committed to him for guaranteed money for 2 years. And he's young enough, and from a wear and tear standpoint, I mean, he's had 2 years in the NFL where he's been the guy, and he had really only 1 year in college where he was the guy, the year he won the Heisman. So I like it. I think it's a good deal.
So here's just a quick sidebar to that, David. As you mentioned, 4-year, $50 million, $25 million guaranteed. In 2011, remember Chris Johnson?
Getting away from the cop speed, Chris Johnson of the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah. In 2011, getting away from the cop speed, signed a 4-year, $53 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. At that point, the NFL salary cap was the salary cap was $80 million less. I mean, just in terms of percentage, the devaluation of the running back. That's just sheer numbers. Salary cap's going through the roof. They paid Chris Johnson more than they paid Derrick Henry.
Mama, don't let your babies grow up
to be running backs.
Miles Garrett.
Let them be DNs, linebackers, or safeties. They'll get a better chance at contract number 2. Sorry. You start giving me Willie and Waylon, and all bets are off. I'll go right into Looking Back Texas after that. Look out, baby. And I'll have the guitar by the 3rd song.
Of course, the reason that was in my head was not Willie or Waylon. It was Dandy Don, but that's a whole other story. Miles Garrett, because Dandy Don would, midway through a game, just start singing Willie or Waylon.
I got you.
But I see, I didn't grow up listening to Willie or Waylon. Okay, I found Willie or Waylon through Don Meredith. I remember I grew up in the Northeast. There was one country music station.
Did they play both kinds of music?
They played country and Western. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Myles Garrett made it official with the Browns yesterday, 5-year extension. He gets $50 million at signing. That's right. He gets at signing what Derrick Henry could get over the next 4 years. And he gets 100 of the 125 guaranteed, Mark. So he will become, at least right now on paper, when this extension kicks in 2022, he will become A, the highest paid defensive player in football. That's if somebody doesn't surpass him between now and then. And B, the most guaranteed money of any defensive player in football. Because right now, Khalil Mack's making a little over 23, and he had $90 million of his Bears contract guaranteed. So Myles Garrett and his agent able to do better than that. But 12 players, Mark, are going to play this year on the franchise tag, and one of them is Dak Prescott. Poor Dak. He only will play this year making $31.4 million. Poor guy.
I loved Dan Patrick yesterday. I happened to listen to a little of his show. He referred to it as Dak Prescott Day. Because either way, whatever happens today, Dak Prescott wins.
Well, the holdup is length of contract. The Cowboys are insistent on 5 years, and Dak is insistent on 4. And I will say it's never a good sign when the family members start getting involved.
Thank you. That's what I was getting to. That's where I was getting to.
I thought that this was going along swimmingly, and they just had a difference of opinion, and Dak will either, pin them into a corner after having a really good year this year, or else the Cowboys will be able to look back at him and go, offer still stands. You ready to sign it? But now the brother's getting involved.
Tad Prescott, brother of Dak, did a little tweeting, which he said, there's a reason I was never a Dallas Cowboys fan growing up before they drafted Dak. Did at both the Cowboys and Dak, for the record. After today, who knows how much longer I'll be cheering for them.
Yeah. So poor Dak. He got a $29.5 million raise for this season, but everybody in the NFL circles feels sorry for him, and everybody's beating up the Cowboys. Mark, I'm starting to question my position. I'm defending Jerry Jones. I think Jerry Jones is like one step above a moron when it comes to a general manager. I really do. Okay, and the fact that he's in the Hall of Fame, I think, is the worst of all the halls of fame. R.C. Slocum in the College Football Hall of Fame or Jerry Jones in the NFL Hall of Fame? It's close.
Quick David Moulton poll question. Sidebar for 4 seconds. GM you think less of? Jerry Jones, Brian Cashman?
Oh, Jerry Jones.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, you've trashed Cashman on this show for over a decade, too.
Well, I've trashed him because everybody treats him like he's Greg Popovich. I mean, for goodness sakes, the guy spent $5 billion as general manager. I mean, seriously, give me that checkbook. The only World Series that the Yankees have had this century, he wrote checks for. He just flat wrote checks. CeCe, A.J. Burnett, Mark Teixeira, re-signing A-Rod. I mean, hell, I could do that. You could do that. All right. Gene Michael, Buck Showalter, and Bob Watson were the ones that drafted and signed the core 4. He didn't have anything to do with those 4 guys. All right. The city of Philadelphia apparently late yesterday afternoon said, I know what we said on Tuesday, but maybe we went a little nuts. We're going to revisit this whole fans at Eagles and Phillies game.
Never mind.
Not right away, but we're going to revisit this. It's possible we may find a loophole for them. All right. We may have gone a little too far. That's all. We may. Just give us some time to work this out. Speaking of fans, there were 20,000 fans at Bristol Motor Speedway last night for the NASCAR All-Star race.
That's the positive. To me, the negative is that they were going to allow 30,000 and only 20,000 came. Do you know that not all 5,000 showed up for Talladega?
Interesting.
I didn't know that until yesterday when I was reading about the crowd now, because I thought yesterday in the All-Star race, David, tell me if you think I'm off base. I thought it was the biggest sporting event in the country that we've had because they had fans.
They did.
That was last night to me was a big time deal for sports, not for NASCAR, but for sports. They had 20,000 plus at a NASCAR race in Bristol.
Now, I will say it surprised me. None of them were wearing masks. I thought they were going to make them wear masks. And granted, it is outdoors, but there were, all the shots in the crowd, I didn't see a single fan that had a mask on. Obviously, all the drivers are wearing masks and the pit reporters are and what have you. Chase Elliott, though, doing what his dad did some 34 years ago. Mark, Awesome Bill from Dawsonville,
baby.
Earned his second nickname when he won the All-Star race in '86, and he became $1 Million Bill.
I watched the pre-race because they had 2 stages to let guys qualify.
Yes.
Basically the back end of the field. They had a couple of stages where guys could get into the All-Star race.
Right. There were 4 drivers who raced their way in, or 3 who raced their way in, and 1 who got voted in by the fans.
And so I'm watching a little bit of the pre, and they did a really nice job. They brought DW back last night.
They did. Well, he's a Tennessee guy. He was the guest of the governor of Tennessee. And so once they knew he was going to be there, they said, well, you want to go in the booth and do your thing?
And
I thought it was great.
You know why it was great? Because Gordon embraced it. If you were to bring Madden back, Collinsworth has to embrace it, if you know what I mean. You can't bring DW back and have Gordon be half-assed about doing it. And they're trading stories about the All-Star race when DW and Dale are going at it, and Gordon ends up being the guy winning the race because they wreck one another.
Right.
And DW tells the story. He goes, you know what Dale said to me after? And, they're all waiting. And he says, don't try to pass me on the high side, because I'm going to take you out if you do. So I thoroughly enjoyed the pre-race coverage.
Yes.
They had the 4 of the McReynolds and it was terrific.
Yeah, they
They're
put the
great
band
story
back together again.
They're great storytellers, David. They are.
And their coverage is so much better than NBC's. It's embarrassing. Chase Elliott won the All-Star race. He wins $1 million. Kyle Busch second. Kyle has not won yet this year. He's finished second like 4 times. Speaking of money, one of the top 5 high school prospects in the country, Jonathan Kuminga, he did 2 things yesterday. First off, he was supposed to be in the class of 2021. He said, yeah, heck with that. I'm going to reclassify and be in the class of 2020. I always love the high school athlete now who can raise his hand and say, yeah, I'm moving myself up a year. Oh, okay. And then Jonathan Kuminga said, yeah, I'm not going to Texas Tech where my brother is. I'm going to the G League and I'm getting paid.
And he's getting paid, David. I don't know what happened in the last month. I know that they were raising salaries in that league, and I thought it was like $1.25 you could get. Maybe $250. He's getting $500,000. That's what the reports are.
And apparently he's the second such player to get the $500,000 salary. What is interesting is he is the 5th top 75 prospect to declare for the G League and not college ball this year. If you go by ESPN's rankings, prospects numbers 1, 4, 15, 21, and 65. So basically 4 top 20 prospects have chose the G League over playing college ball. The dispute between Elena Delle Donne and the WNBA continues. What is interesting is the Washington Mystics, the franchise she pays for, and they're owned by the guy who owns the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals, Ted Leonsis. They made sure to come out and go, hey, we don't have a problem with this. We're totally supportive of her. This is between her and the league. She's rehabbing a back injury. She's on a roster. We have every intention of paying her. This is an issue between her, her agent, her doctors, and the league. And so I don't think she's going to play this year. Apparently the Mystics on their own are going to pay her. But if it was up to the WNBA, they would not. She wants a medical exemption for this year because she has Lyme disease. David Lewis was a linebacker on the 79 Bucks team that went from worst to first and made the playoffs and went to the NFC Championship game. The former outside linebacker passed away in Tampa Tuesday at the age of 65. He was one of the many players that John McKay ended up drafting and bringing with him from USC in those first few years of franchise history. Mark, do you remember the story about St. Thomas of Minnesota? The D3 school that was so good. They
kicked them out of the league?
Kicked them out of the league because they were too good.
And they were actually trying to see if they could jump all the way to D1 FBS. I mean, there's a lot of different things because they had nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. There was no Division III conference that would take them. And so they said, our only hope is to actually go from D3 to D1, which has never been done. Yesterday, the NCAA approved it.
Wow.
St. Thomas of Minnesota is going to join the Summit League, I think, in everything but football. And in football, they're going to play in some other league.
I'm impressed that the NCAA did this. This is why the NCAA is the weirdest organization in the world, because 99 times out of 100, they use zero logic. And then that one time, they trick you and do this.
Jack's tournament, the Memorial, gets underway today at Muirfield Village. Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, came out yesterday and said, we're still hopeful of having fans at a golf tournament before this year is over. I could have sworn on Monday it was reported widely throughout golf circles that there would be no fans at any golf tournaments for the rest of the year.
I can confirm that, David.
Okay. So it's interesting. The commissioner's still holding out hope. Mark, don't you think the commissioner had to throw on FS1 last night and just kind of take a look at Bristol Motor Speedway and see what the 20,000 fans in a track that can hold about 140,000, what it looked like, what it sounded like, what it felt like, and thought, we got about 8,000 yards we can spread these people out over. I mean, can't we figure out a way to have some of these fans? Especially if we make them all wear masks.
Well, that's the part I don't, look at. And again, once again, for the selfish, I'm not going to wear a mask crowd, don't go.
Yeah, well, you won't be allowed. I mean, Walmart and Sam's Club as of Monday, if you don't wear a mask, they ain't letting you in. Okay? I mean, and listen, if you choose to go somewhere else in Costco or whatever, do your shopping from now on, they're willing to take that.
Looks like you've got Publix now after Monday.
Right. And speaking of masks, Didi Gregorius, the shortstop for the Philadelphia Phillies, he said he's going to wear a mask during games. And the Major League Baseball season starts a week from tonight.
I think it's spectacular. I think the more prominent people you see doing their life with the mask, it makes the resistance tougher for those that just say, well, I can't breathe. This guy's playing pro sports with the mask, gang.
So it's one thing for them to be working out and playing simulated games with masks on, but he actually said, I'm going to wear them when we start playing, and we start playing in a week. And at 11 minutes before 7 o'clock, that mark is
the starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and foxsportsfm.com.
Our poll question when we come back. Miller and Moulton. Thanks for waking up with us in Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
All right, do you have a TV in your studio there?
I do, but I don't have it on.
Okay, I've got the normal on. And I'm trying to get a take on what's-her-face's outfit here, the main anchor.
Okay.
I think she looks spectacular, and she looks like she has a tie-dye dress on. I think it's the best she's ever looked on television, and the dress is funky. It's one of those that if you showed me the dress, I'd say you can't wear that on TV. They're in commercial. Oh, no, they're not. They're right there. I mean, it looks like a tie-dye dress, and yet when she was standing up, she looks spectacular. Her coloring in it looks great.
Plus, get Kohl's Cash. Plus, limited contact store drive-up. Right now at Kohl's and Kohl's.com.
So remember I told you about that deli in Chicago? I guess its name, I thought it was Mario's. Apparently the name was Manny's. And they took to Twitter and said, hey, we're really hurting. If you guys could stop by or order something, we'd really appreciate it. Apparently, people were lined up around the block yesterday. And they took to Twitter to thank everyone and go, God, you guys were great. Saved our ass for the time.
That's
being.
awesome.
So that was cool.
All right. Well, that doesn't help me. We need a better. The Australian football rules. They got to do a better job of telling me where I can watch games.
Wow.
All right, wait a minute. That's supposed to. Oh, ESPN 3. You're killing me. You are killing me with this. Good news is tomorrow morning we've got a 5:30 a.m. and an 11:30 p.m. game. I won't be up for that, but 5:30 a.m. we got the Bombers and the Bulldogs tomorrow on FS1. Everybody.
When you say Bombers, I think Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
I think Dayton Bombers of the ECHL.
Okay.
All right. What's that question? Which one are we doing?
You were supposed to decide.
What was the second one? I think I like that one.
The second one was should college football have a commissioner?
Should college football
have a commissioner?
Listen to Miller and Moulton at home on your Amazon Alexa. Just say, Alexa.
Receiving. Over.
Play Fox Sports FM on TuneIn. We are Fox Sports.
I like the other one to do. I think we could do a segment on your other question. I think we could do the whole 7 o'clock segment on the other question. I think it's difficult in a poll question because of some of the reasons why I think we'd be accepting of them opting out, if you know what I mean. Because I think it's a great question. I think it's a difficult one to put into a poll question. But I definitely think we could do a segment on it.
Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you've got $500 down and make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. But hurry, when 200 new Kias are sold, this sale is over. Caliana Kia, 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call 239-481.
That is so funny. I have to allow, anytime Redskins gets typed into the chat room, I have to allow it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I didn't see any news. I think it was Pat. Somebody just tweeted out Pat Donovan goes, do you mean to tell me that Jason Lockett-Four and a bunch of Washington reporters have massive news on the football team, but they're all just sitting on it until Friday so the Post can report it?
Hurricane and windstorm damage. Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
There's Jack out there, no mask.
Need a checkup?
And he already said he's shaking hands with everybody.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Is your pool a pain to operate? Automation is the answer. Use your phone to turn on your spa, and it'll be warm when you get home. Free on-site evaluations. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Six minutes before 7 o'clock, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We are Miller and Moulton. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Our poll question yesterday kind of knew it was going to go this route. What have you added to your life more recently? A new food item to your regular weekly menu or a new friend? And by a 4-to-1 margin, we're much more interested in food than we are people.
Not much of a surprise.
I just figured that with the pandemic that people have just been ordering the same thing for 4 months. They have not tried anything new in a while, and it was possible, especially with the homeschooling and things that was going on, that maybe, a new person entered your life.
David, I don't know if you've paid much attention to the past 4 years, maybe the past 12. But We have become increasingly difficult to deal with as a society if you disagree with us on damn near anything.
No.
And therefore, in order to get a new friend in 2020, apparently they have to think exactly like you, or you can't be their friend.
Well, a much simpler question today.
A much simpler. Back to sports. We're getting right in our lane.
Whether it's a narrow one, whether it's a cobblestone one, whatever it is.
I think our lane's a dirt road, David. I really do. I think our lane's a dirt road. I'm driving my grandfather's Blazer down Bordeaux Road in Standish, Michigan. Hello.
Yeah, we were off-roading before there was off-roading. So should college football have a commissioner? You know, Tim Brando's been pushing for it for years, and Timmy B goes on lots of shows. And now with everything that's going on, there are people that are believing, college football needs a voice. They need somebody to take charge. We need uniformity.
1 minute.
We need a commissioner. Not will college football get a commissioner?
No, because I don't think that might be hell no.
Thank you. Yes, no, and hell no.
That might be hell no.
Right.
If we chase this poll with tomorrow, will there be a college football commissioner? There would be 3 answers: yes, no, and hell no.
The question is, should college football have a commissioner? I say no. I like that college football's quirky. I like that some of the rules are different. Okay, I do.
I say no until the group of 5 power conferences break away. When that happens, then get yourself a commissioner because you're playing a different brand of football then. But if we're going to keep on keeping on, then I think they've got to do it the way they're doing now.
So that's our poll question. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, millerandmoulton.com.
It's Kaylee Kobe at Kobe Corner.
Kaylee, how are you?
5 minutes since you have heard an air conditioning company commercial all day long. Blah, blah, blah. So how do you pick the best? First, only pick a company with NATE certified mechanics. Next, the license holder should also be...
Have you seen this Sarah Cooper on Twitter?
You want someone who's...
I don't think so.
She's must be some sort of a comedian. She's all she does is takes different Trump voice things and she lip syncs them.
Yeah, that one I've seen.
Oh God, she's hysterical. Her inflections are so good.
Now offering Kobe's exclusive brand, the Florida Reserve. Call and ask us about a 10-year guarantee.
Gotta love the Australian rules football people. McAfee put up a retweet of the Australian game being on ESPN3, and I just simply said, where is this on US TV? And I mean, I got people responding all over the place. They can't give me enough info on Aussie football.
Every single day there's a news story. We got a story.
We've been working on that all morning long.
I missed this last night. So apparently the Georgia governor explicitly voided any and all local mask mandates. So, like, if your community passed a local mask ordinance, he goes, no.
Well, Michigan passed a mask mandate, and the sheriff of Saginaw County, where I'm from, basically said, yeah, I'm not enforcing it.
Right.
And they basically have said because there's a $500 fine they can give. And he has basically said, yeah, that's not happening.
1664 for more information, or visit towboatuscapecoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never
So,
on the water. WFSX
I mean, it's really good when
Cape Coral and all of Southwest Florida. 94.1 Fox Sports Radio. We are Fox Sports. Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the Center for Men's Health. C4MH.com.
Ay, ay, ay.
Did you watch any of the All-Star race last night?
I went to bed a little early. I watched, the first stage.
I loved the paint schemes.
Oh,
I love the lights.
Oh, underneath the glow on the car?
Yeah, and I know that you probably immediately thought of Fox and the glowing puck.
No, I was fine. I'm fine with that.
I loved it.
I didn't hear anything from I was just reading a couple things what the drivers saw of the race, seeing whether they like or dislike that. That whole pick your lane thing, the drivers seem to love.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to lose you. It's unstable. There, you're frozen. Good shot of the side of David's face. He should be back. There he is. But that whole restart thing, they chose their lane that beforehand, and all of the drivers basically were all in. Like Chase Elliott was over the top about it. Now he won, but nobody said it was a bad thing. Most of them said it's a rule that should be in there.
Love BOGO English muffins. You throw one on the counter, you throw the other in the freezer. There you go.
Tell you what, John's got 2 in a row. Give him us singing the little Waylon Willie or Don Meredith song in the starting 5 today. He's got another open.
Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? A couple minutes past 7 o'clock on this Thursday, the 16th of July. We're Miller and Moulton. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show at millerandmoulton.com. That's where you can go to download our podcast. Every hour of the show gets its own podcast brought to you by Connecticut, SWFL.com, the best damn water that we have ever had. That's also where you can go to vote in our poll question, which simply today is, should college football have a commissioner? Each conference has a commissioner, but they don't answer to anybody. Should they? Would the sport be better off? All the other sports, the commissioners have to answer to the NCAA. The NCAA doesn't have anything to do with big-time college football. They lost that right in the courts in the mid-'80s. So do we need a commissioner? Is this uniformity? I say no, believe it or not. I think we have enough uniformity and trying to conform everyone to certain beliefs and what have you. I think we have enough of it. I like the fact college football is quirky. I do.
Like I said before, I'll go with a commissioner the minute that the Power 5 conferences split off from the rest of college football and start their own league. Because I do think in our lifetime that happens, David. I really do. I've thought it for a long time. I think with the way scholarships are, it's the only way that it's fair for the rest of collegiate athletics. Not that anybody cares about fairness in college sports, but I do think at some point for this to happen, it's almost a breakaway scenario.
Do you think, like I had a buddy of mine text me yesterday, and he believes that the Big Ten did what they did on purpose because the Big Ten wants to kill the MAC. Okay, and I said, ooh.
Why?
And that's his thing is that basically what you're alluding to, that the Power Fives want to thin the Group of Fives.
Okay,
just thin them out. They basically get rid of them. All right, and then this way, we'll just make it look like it all happened naturally. We'll use the pandemic to our advantage. They all go bankrupt. By the way, did anybody see what happened at the University of Akron yesterday? Now, I'm not talking about the Akron Athletic Department. I'm talking about the University of Akron. Yeah, they laid off about 150 people yesterday at the university. We haven't gotten to the athletic department. We're just talking the university. Miller and Moulton are wrong about a lot of things. We were right on 4 months ago talking about the entire financial system of colleges and college athletics could crumble during this time period.
I put that on a Facebook post to a friend of mine up in Michigan when the governor there said no fans. This was a while ago. She was out ahead of a lot of states. And I just simply put that statement. Said the university system depends on people being on campus. I have a friend from high school who's the associate athletic director at Marquette. Couldn't like my comment and underneath it go, everything he said is right.
Yep.
This is someone who's an AD at Marquette.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't David and I talking. David talks to the folks at FGCU a lot. I've made mention that I have a friend who's a professor at Rutgers. She has said the same thing. This is very concerning for not just college sports, but for colleges.
Well, I mean, we all know it in our everyday life. I mean, we all, whether we intend to or not, well over 90% of us, well over 90%, live to our means. If we're not making a lot of money, we rein it in usually. And if we start making a little bit of money, then we start spending a little more money.
Like drunk sailors.
And you don't think colleges have lived to their means over the years? Building the buildings and expanding and this, that, and, athletic departments. And so now when you have this, I mean, we all know what this is doing to our families and our lives. Well, don't you think the same thing? I mean, we're seeing what it's doing to businesses. Well, a college is a business.
And a big business. In every one of these towns, with the exception of major cities like Pitt and Miami, and all of them, for the most part, Auburn, Michigan State, the University of Kentucky, they're the biggest job factories in their town.
And so if you missed it yesterday, look up what the University of Akron did yesterday. Not the athletic department, the university. It was take your breath away. Oh, my goodness. Haven't seen a university make that type of announcement in a very long time. Oh, by the way, like 150 of you are out of work effective today. What? So anyway, 479-5551, 479-5551. Back to the sports part of it, though, in which my buddy really believes. And he happens to be a fan of a team that's in the ACC. And so I had to say, hey, listen, is this your, a dislike of the Big Ten or what have you? And he said, no. He goes, I think the ACC would do it to a nearby conference as well. He thinks that the Power Five just want to, quote unquote, thin the herd, so to speak.
Okay, on that note, David, I grabbed Phil Steele's book from last year just so I could make sure I wasn't missing anybody in a conference. In the two worst conferences, I think Phil does this in order of what he believes are the best conferences to the worst conference, because it always starts with the SEC and is next the Big Ten. The last two are the Sun Belt, which he considers, and I think fairly, probably the worst conference in the country, and then the MAC. You tell me, everybody listening, I'm going to run through these teams. You tell me the next time you think one of these teams could pull off what UCF or Boise did, because they are the top of the group of 5 teams. They have played in Fiesta Bowls and big-time bowl games and made money. App State, Troy, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Coastal Carolina.
Well, you're going pretty fast.
Well, yes, because these teams are irrelevant.
Well,
Okay,
I disagree, but
App State, great FBS program.
Located in the right part of the country, though, there's players there.
Okay, but to your buddy's point, would the ACC want App State to quit getting kids?
Oh no, if you're the ACC, you'd love to eliminate the Sun Belt, because you're mentioning like Troy. You think Alabama and Auburn want Troy? I mean, Troy could be really good. Coastal Carolina, App State, it's not like within 200 miles, there's not players at these schools.
No, you're right. Georgia Southern, Georgia State. Georgia Southern was a great FBS program. Like App State and Georgia Southern, I don't get. I never have. I never will. They played for championships, and now they're trying to win the Sun Belt to go to a bowl game that nobody cares about.
Well, App State last year, right? Weren't they?
Yes,
they were the
darling
game. They could have been the team with the donut last year.
They were the darling last year.
That they shouldn't have lost.
Coastal Carolina, Arkansas State, Louisiana Monroe, Texas State, and South Alabama.
See, and I could make the case there's players within 200 miles of all of those schools. If I'm the Big 12 and the ACC, I'd love to squash the Sun Belt.
You may
absolutely squash them.
And the Sun Belt's probably better than the MAC as you actually look at it, because there was a time that the MAC had all of the bodies that are now around the Sun Belt. I mean, if you just think of the population shift,
right?
It's Texas, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. Where did they come from? Michigan and Ohio. And in Pennsylvania, a lot of the Rust Belt. But like Toledo's picked to win the West of the MAC. Toledo's, in their best year, they're average now. I mean, Northern Illinois, they were the last MAC team to throw the donut up, and they got to go out to the Fiesta Bowl.
I think Western Illinois, the guy who's at Minnesota now, the whole row the boat, I think he threw
Western
an undefeated
Michigan
season.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Western Michigan. He threw an undefeated season like 5 years ago up on the board. I think they're the last.
Okay,
MAC
they were
team.
before Northern Illinois. You are, or after Northern Illinois. Those were the last two. And look, you can throw a donut up in the MAC if you've got a really good team because it's not good football anymore.
But I didn't agree with him, but I thought it was an interesting theory that if you're one of these Power 5 conferences, you and I believe, you stated it a moment ago, that we think they're going to break away from the group of 5 at some point and just do their own thing. They're only going to schedule each other, the whole deal, and they're going to say to those guys, you might as well drop down to FCS for as relevant as you are. I mean, we'll find out right now if the SEC and Big 12 and them, if they come up with some sort of schedule where they need 1 or 2 non-conference games. And one of the things that emerged late yesterday, Pat Forty of Sports Illustrated said that the 3 plans that were discussed at the SEC meetings were conference games only, a 10-game season, which is 8 plus 2, and then a full season.
In Louisiana Monroe, praying for the full season because they have 2 SEC opponents and will get paid $3.25 million to lose badly to Georgia and give Arkansas a really good game.
Right. And Kent State has already lost the 1 game with Penn State, and they don't want to lose the other one with Alabama. So, do you think college football needs a commissioner?
By the way,
that's
those
a poll question.
Sorry, David. Those in the Twitch chat room are saying no and no. I'd like to hear your reasons why, as opposed to just no. A couple of people on the Williamson Brothers Marine Talk and text line have chimed in. One says yes, Gilbert Godfrey, which I think anytime you can put Gilbert Godfrey in charge of something, it's not a bad thing. And one just says, I thought Feinbaum was the commish.
Ah, well played. Well played.
So I don't think, I'm with David. I like the conference bravado that we get from all 5 commissioners, well, 4 commissioners, and then the Pac-10 guy making a mess of things. Pac-12, Larry Scott there. If he has a job if he's still employed by the end of this year, Dave, where would you go if that was another internal poll question?
Well, reportedly, he's contracted the coronavirus, which may have put a halt to the movement that had gone public from within the conference to get rid of him. I mean, I think now, you want to talk about a bad look. I mean, overthrowing a guy when he has the coronavirus, no matter how bad of a job we all think he did, we do think that that's a bad look. So, Mark, I think that the overthrow movement has been put on the back burner or off to the side for a couple of weeks. They want to see whether or not there's still someone to overthrow. They want to wish him the best, of course.
Publicly.
Before they wish
publicly.
But then they want to wish him all the best in his future endeavors.
Yeah.
We've all gotten that one.
I didn't even get that. I didn't even get the future endeavors when I got gassed.
I didn't get it either last time. I didn't get the future endeavors one either.
10 plus years. I didn't even get a future endeavors. I just got to get the hell out the door.
I know.
Made $1 million plus for that company.
17 for me too. I
Yep.
didn't get it either.
See ya.
No.
Whatever.
No. 479-5551.
Pretty good time for those numbers, David.
479-5551.
So a lot of people have been inquiring on Twitch, why haven't we gone Dan Snyder in the story? Because there's not enough there. There is a handful of leaks. The biggest rumor that is believed to be true is there's a bombshell coming.
Yeah, but
about the Washington Redskins. The
Do
one
you?
I've seen a couple of different things as I was scrolling through Twitter, and I almost don't even want to say it because.
Well, I mean, should we? I mean, honestly, I've been looking all morning.
And you've read the same things really?
I can't find anything.
Okay. I've seen this twice. This is the one thing they're saying is that there are rumors that basically cheerleaders were pimped out to season ticket holders while Snyder held their passports.
What? Okay.
Holding their passports from them in a foreign country. So when the Redskins went and played, did they play in London?
I think they did.
So that's, I mean, there are some really ugly stories that are starting to surface. And I mean, they're saying the stories are so damning that Snyder's going to have to sell the team.
So he's going to become the NFL equivalent of Donald Sterling.
Bingo.
They're just going to say, Dan, time to sell.
Bingo. That seems to be what is coming out all over the place. So that is what I've seen all morning. I've been looking constantly. I've seen 2 or 3 people, but they're retweets. But again, Pat Donovan, who's been on our show a bunch from in Tampa there, he's like, really? The whole Washington media is holding a story. This doesn't happen anymore.
Well, no. I mean, it's a race to be first now as opposed to a race to be right. The only thing I was asked late yesterday, why do you think that no one is, quote unquote, reporting anything? And I'm like, well, because they don't know it. They've heard it. They've been told by certain people, this is the story, but they don't know it. I mean, the Washington Post is the one that is apparently investigating this. They're the one that apparently has the story. Now, I will say, as someone who worked in the media for 20 years, I do find it interesting that 48 hours ago, people knew that the story was going to run either today or tomorrow. That I do find interesting, because normally you just run these things as soon as you can dot your I's and cross your T's. So I find that interesting. I mean, every now and then you hold, especially in the newspaper industry, and those who work for the 2 local papers who are listening right now could chime in at 479-5551. There are stories that get held for Sunday. I mean, Sunday's obviously the big paper day, and there are times which long-form pieces, et cetera, which are done a few days earlier, but they're held for Sunday.
In fact, David, the story that ended your tenure at our previous broadcaster was a Sunday story, but released online on a Friday.
It was.
I mean, that story was that good that it was an above-the-fold Sunday story. Dead air.
So. Yeah.
Best headline they've ever written.
Right. I know. As soon as I saw the headline on Sunday, I said, oh, this ain't good. This ain't good. I said, oh, they're not going to have a sense of humor about this. And I did laugh. I fired off a text to a couple of people at the News Press in which I said, all the years I've been complaining about the headlines, and maybe the best one you've ever written, I go, it's probably going to get me fired. I've told a couple people over there too. I'm like, listen, if you put a very average headline on that story, I'm still working there. I'm telling you. I'd say I would have been suspended for a few days. I go, but
probably
if you
a week.
Put a run-of-the-mill headline on that story.
Dead air.
Yeah.
Dead air.
Yeah, I saw big block letters too, right smack dab in the middle of the thing.
And a picture.
Like, oh, wow.
Yep.
This is not going to go over well. No.
Golly gee, that was good.
No, look at the time.
So that's the big story in Washington. We're going to get to it in a minute. The other one, Buffalo. Did you see they lost their naming rights of their sponsor for their? Well, I mean, does that mean New Era is out of business?
Well, New Era is apparently doing what Under Armour is. New Era is taking a look at what's going on business-wise and going, yeah, do we really need to be spending this money? Like Under Armour's got a few deals as well with UCLA and I think Cal, and they're like, yeah, we want out of these contracts. Now, they're trying to break them. They're trying to say that there's something that hasn't happened and these schools are in violation, and UCLA and Cal are like, listen, will you just be honest with us? Okay, you're trying to get out of the contract because your business isn't what it was when you did these deals. Come on, just be honest with us. And it looks like New Era went to the Bills and they said, hey, if you could find somebody else to put their name on this stadium, we'd really appreciate it. We could use the money. And so the Bills said, New Era approached us. We're going to look for a new sponsor. But don't think the Bills are going to let New Era take their name off the stadium and not send them checks until they find a replacement.
Oh, I got you. But that's just that if I am any building in the country right now, I'm nervous as hell about that.
Oh, sure.
That's a big check. I don't know what Hertz is writing to Hoffman in his group, but I know what the Tico deal was, and I know what the Jermaine deal was, because I was a big part of both of those. So I have a pretty good idea of what Hertz is spending, and they just filed for bankruptcy.
Right.
And they raise their hand and go, we want out of this? Well, I've got precedent. New Era was let out. I mean, the buildings are freaking out right now, I would imagine. I'd be. It's your biggest sponsor.
Well, and clearly, we've been talking about this, obviously, for the last 4 months off and on. We are not going to look the same when we come out of this, and there will be major changes. We're looking at it, how many small to medium-sized businesses are going to survive this. Heck, for that matter, I mean, restaurant chains we're pretty sure are going to go under. Never mind big block department stores who were in trouble before this. But you really have a few of them have already filed for bankruptcy, and you really have to wonder a year from now, and I don't want to disparage any business, but I mean, there's at least a half a dozen that we have already heard of and know of and are close to filing for bankruptcy, in which it would not shock any of us if by the 2021 football season, if these 6 or 8 businesses are no longer with us.
Absolutely. In fact, David, I had to go, our DVD player crapped out. So, the daughter likes to watch a lot of movies. I went to Walmart. They didn't have any. I mean, they basically had nothing because, people are watching movies. So I went to Best Buy. And I'm not a fan I've never been a big fan of Best Buy. It's just not my favorite store. I'd never had better customer service than when I walked in Best Buy last week, ever in my life. I mean, I came in the front door, and the guys, my daughter and I both have our masks on. He's like, what can I help you with? Hello, welcome. I'm like, looking for this. And Steve, can you take this gentleman? I mean, I've never been walked through a store at Best Buy and had 3 people clamoring to help me. They're desperate. There's no one there anymore.
Right.
They're doing everything they can when you come in to give you good customer service in hopes that you buy something. And you walk into these stores, and even this time of year, it's empty everywhere.
Well, and this is where, I don't want to go too far off subject, and we will try to get back to the Redskins story after the break. But this is something that has been talked about for a while now, is the internet. I mean, if you think of what the internet has done to it may be happening now with education, okay, because of the pandemic and people having to go to school from home. And we may be doing our education, whether we want to or not. We may be doing a lot more of our education online in the very near future. All right. Not just to get through the pandemic. This may cause a seismic shift. We've seen it with the big block department store chain versus, people shop online. They don't have to go to the brick and mortar places anymore. There are a lot of, heck, you're seeing it with network television. I mean, the networks now are putting out shows in which they're putting them specifically on their own streaming channels. They're not even putting them over the air anymore. They're trying to look at what ESPN is doing with their ESPN Plus, and they're buying the rights to certain sports and just putting them on their $5.99 a month channel, streaming, because they think, well, that's the future and people will pay for that. So, yeah, we're going to face this in all aspects of life. We're facing it now, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, and to your point, David, email yesterday. I have a daughter in Lee County Schools. Here are the 4 options you have: face-to-face learning, right, Lee Home Connect, Lee Virtual School, and Homeschool. I wasn't getting an email like this a year ago, folks.
No, you weren't. Now, I will say that's an interesting email to get. There's a part of you that's like, hey, I appreciate that you're asking me. And the other part of you is like, you're paid to make these decisions, right? Make a decision.
Well, no, and theirs is it says recognizing that our parents value choice. They've got different models because not everybody's comfortable with one choice right now.
Of course, what do you do? But that's a whole other story for a whole different show.
You got that right.
Miller and Moulton. We going to talk Redskins here or try to?
We're going to try to find out everything we can about this disturbing story.
That's out there. Okay. We'll try. We've been inundated all morning. Okay. You guys aren't talking about this? I got to tell you, I don't know what this is. But we're going to find out or try to. Les Carpenter covers the team still known as the Redskins for the Washington Post. We'll talk to Les next. Miller and Moulton, thanks for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Hey, Arch, I'd like you to define that. Parents need to be parents again. I'm working my ass off as a dad. It's never been this hard to be a dad. I need to get my daughter back in school. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
I've homeschooled for months now, man.
Arch, I think parents are, I don't know if they've ever been more parents than they are these last 4 months. Think about everything that's on parents' plates.
And I mean, I can tell you I've become better. We don't watch TV the way we used to. I don't even turn it on during the day.
I mean,
and I will tell you, Hops, I'm with you because between now we've got Disney. Now, I know you can get Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN all in the same thing. Then you got, now Amazon Prime is kind of a personal choice. Then you've got Netflix. What am I missing? I mean, you're right. The Apple TV.
Colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortec Stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortec.
Like, I think it's expensive to cut the cord, if you know what I mean.
The easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood, but with a more stable.
Just going to play that Comcast DirecTV game for the next 10 years. Soon as they start getting expensive, dump them, get the other one, go 2 years, and do it again.
Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, floormeisters.com.
Yeah, what's that square? Rick, is the one in Gulf Coast Town Center? That's over by, if I'm right, is that the other side of the store, right? Or other side of the street? Over by, or is that's BurgerFi on the other side of the street? The one, oh yeah, that one's right by the Sports Clips. I've never seen anybody in there.
What was the place at Page Field Commons that just
that's we're talking about?
Square One.
They went out of business. That's where that's where this started.
Hey, did that did PDQ just go under? Because there's one by me about a mile from where I live, and they shut down and have not come back at all.
Oh, really? The ones open in
chicken and salads.
The ones I know it is that they've got one in Gulf Coast Town Center. It's still open.
Okay, because the one on 41 in Fort Myers, right before Crystal, that thing has not come back at all.
Let me know when we get to a minute, please, Jero.
I mean, Sweet Tomatoes announced immediately they were done.
But, I mean, we went, oh, by the way, whoever in the chat room, and if you're there, thank you. I think it was OK Music, who's not in there right now, but whoever said Vincenzo's for a pizza, great call. Great call. One of the best pies I have had down here in forever. I think it might be better than Grandpa's, and I hate to say that because I love Grandpa's. But that was a good pizza. Not even that bad. $20 with tip out the door. It was, Trenton, that was good stuff. I'm with you.
Where is it?
It is across from Island Park on 41, where there used to be, there's a Rusty's in there. In that Clam Bake is in there. The Rusty's is shut down. That Publix Plaza, you know what I'm talking about, David? Island Park and 41. Yeah. It's in the back corner. It's just a little joint. They're only doing takeout. Yeah, I had to back it up with a buddy of mine there, Trenton, and he says he doesn't like their food, doesn't like their dinners, but loves their pizza. And the pizza was great.
Just like the Western bacon cheeseburger.
1 minute.
Charbroiled beef, crispy bacon and onion rings.
Yeah, there's like nothing in that plaza, is there?
Nothing.
No.
There's the Clam Bake and Vincenzo's, and that's it.
There used to be, I think, a Subway, but no, that's in just a little further up.
Hello?
Les, good morning.
How you doing?
Very well. Mark Miller and David Moulton in Southwest Florida. Thank you very much for your time.
Sure, no problem at all.
We're about 30 seconds away from going on.
Okay.
How is it possible, just quickly, how is everybody holding this? This is the biggest story out there, and it seems everybody knows it, and no one's leaking anything.
Yeah, and the thing is, I can't even really talk about that because I don't know much about it. So I think everybody's just talking about it. They don't know what they're talking about.
Okay, well, that's good enough.
We're good.
That's a great start.
I mean, there's something in there.
It's
but
a
I
great
really
line.
can't say
Channel
much
your
more than
inner
that.
Fauci right there. That's fantastic.
No, but I mean, I really just I can't say more than that.
Fair enough. Here we go. Thanks again, Les.
Sure.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
We're halfway home on this Thursday, July 16th edition of Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show every day at millerandmoulton.com, and we broadcast live every day on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Les Carpenter is kind enough to join us right now. He covers the team known as the Redskins for the Washington Post. You can follow Les on Twitter at Les Carpenter. Les, top of the morning to you. How are you and your family holding up during all this?
Oh, we're doing well. How are you?
Well, we're doing well also. We like to ask all our guests, obviously there's something a whole heck of a lot bigger going on right now than sports. So we just want to make sure that everyone's, healthy, doing okay. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, everyone's pretty good. I mean, I think once we get through the shock of realizing we're going to have to help our kids do school every day, I think that we settled in. But no, everything's been pretty good.
All right. Well, the biggest story that everyone's talking about, that no one knows anything about, is out of Washington. And the Twitter rumor mill is fast and furious, but not anybody seems to know anything. I know you probably can't say a lot about this story, or may not even know about what is in it, but is all of the frenzy going to be met with the same kind of vigor when the story is released, whenever that is?
Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm only very, very, peripherally involved in this story. I have to say that I kind of think there's a lot of people out there throwing a lot of stuff out that don't really have any idea, what the story is about, or just kind of build a frenzy about it. I, quite frankly, have never seen anything, like this. I'm a little, I'm a little perplexed, especially since a lot of this is coming from media people. But I just think it kind of speaks right now as sort of. There's just a lot of turmoil spinning around this franchise, probably has been for a couple of years, well, for many years, but it really kind of heated up in recent seasons. I thought some of that was going to die down this year with the Rivera hire, and yet there's probably some gaps in the franchise that's kind of allowed all this to sort of heat up again. And, the name thing is just one of many fronts that's kind of going on right now.
Les, you touched on something, and as somebody who's, we're in the media, but you work for the Washington Post. I mean, you are in the media. And it is fascinating in a day and age in which everybody, if they hear something, they immediately take to Twitter, whether it's right or not. And now we've got this thing that's been out there for over 36 hours in which they're saying it's kind of like the weather people talking about the Category 4 hurricane's coming, but it's coming on Saturday. It's fascinating. We can't recall in this internet era, social media era, the national media talking about a story. Hey, it's coming, just wait for it. Because usually, they report on it.
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm stunned about this. I really don't know what to say more than that. I'm seeing journalists here saying that something momentous is coming, and I'm just I kind of at a loss of words, really. Because it sort of startled me the first couple tweets that I saw. There's something big. We don't know what it is. We don't know what to say about it. I can't tell you because I don't know, but it's going to be big. Well, how do you know it's going to be big? I don't mean to go on a diatribe again. This is a hard business, and we all take criticism in it, and so I certainly don't want to be levying any others out. But I've just never seen this kind of behavior from other media members. It's a little startling.
It seems as if there's an excitement. I mean, we kind of alluded to some of the rumors that are out there. It's like they're already making Snyder out to be the next Donald Sterling, and it seems this is where it is a fine line for the media because Dan Snyder doesn't seem to be a very likable guy, but you have to put that aside when you're reporting on something, don't you?
Yes. Again, I don't know what's going on here. If there's just void of other league news, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't really talking about it. This thing has taken such a weird frenzy of its own. I'm speechless about it. But I mean, I can't. Again, it's something I can't talk about. I feel like I'm adding to the hype with that. I just am kind of in the dark. I only know a little bit. I don't know. I kind of just don't know what to say. I don't know if at this point nothing's going to match a hype. So
he's Les Carpenter. He covers the Redskins for the Washington Post. You can follow Les on Twitter.
Other things going on.
You can follow Les on Twitter at Les Carpenter. All right. Moving forward with the name, is this something that you expect the change will happen and it will happen before the season is scheduled to kick off? Or do you think that they will play the 2020 season for the final time as the Redskins and the name change and everything that goes with it will then take place after this season?
It's a good question, and that's what I was alluding to before. There's just so many kind of things going on at this point. I think there's so much uncertainty you don't know. It seems that they made the announcement just kind of to take the heat off, saying, "Well, look, guys, we're going to change the name. Now we're doing our review. Just move on. When we're done with the review, there will be a different name here." I think that was just kind of to stop a bit of the frenzy about the use of the name. But I don't know how far along they are on the process. It's unclear. I'll get things that say they picked a name. I'll get things that say they haven't. This is probably going to. I don't know. This is such a tough process. I can't see it being done unless the camp's going to start in 2 weeks. I think it's hard if a team takes some sort of field, whether it's practice or whether it's games or whatever. Under a name that everyone says we're not, you can't be, and they don't want to be anymore. I could see a possibility where they play a month as the Washington football team. I do think they're going to try to rush the name and get it up there. But whether they can pull all that off in a couple weeks, whatever it is, I just don't know. I feel like there's probably going to have to be some kind of interim thing, and I don't believe they want to use the name Redskins.
So Washington football team for part of the year. That will be interesting because that's
Les,
I've been with you.
I think by kickoff they'll have something of the season, but that's what I mean. There's a lot of different kind of there's just a lot of chaos swirling right now because these are things that you usually take months to do, and they're really rushing to process because of everything that's going on.
And not to mention, I've been through a name change of a building that I worked at. It's not a snap of a fingers and you change the name. It sounds silly, but logistically, signage and paperwork and all of the different things, letterhead and all of these things that have to be created don't just happen instantly. By the way, there is a pandemic going on, so nothing seems to be getting done in a hurry. That's why I don't see how they start the season as anything but the Washington football team or the Redskins. I just think logistically, this is a nightmare to try to do a name change, and everybody thinks they can do it in 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. It's I was talking to a couple people from a company that's kind of what they do, and they're saying, look, this is at minimum for corporations, 2-month process, and often it's a lot longer. It's just so many different people you want to talk to, so many things you got to line up, and not to mention all the signage and all the other things that you have to change. The team's practice facility is on a road named after with the Redskins in it. Facility's got all the word, the signs that say Redskins. You go out on the fields, in the field there's some turf fields that have the helmet logo, just as a part of the turf. And then you go to the stadium and all the things that have to be done there. And there's a media guide that's just about printed, and it's got 500 pages with the word Redskins in it. It's a massive undertaking. And, remember, this is a team that still doesn't have a team president. So yes, there's a lot that has to be done here. It's kind of being done by a small group of people, and yeah, here's a season, by the way, and and whatever else kind of is going on the side with this franchise. Yeah, there's a lot. When I say there's a lot, it's kind of strange. There really are about two or three things just really burning on the all at once with this franchise.
Is there a heavy favorite from the fan standpoint as to what they want the franchise called going forward? Or if this were an internet poll, it'd be 20% for this answer and 18% for this and 15% for this? Or is there a name that a majority of Redskins fans are like, hey, if you could rename the franchise this, we'd really like it?
There has been a very massive rush to the name Red Wolves. At least on the internet. I don't know what that's like. I haven't paid personally attention so much to radio and everything right now, just because I kind of have my head down on all the things going on with this team. But that is my sense, at least if you just kind of go on Twitter and some of those things. Red Wolves is a huge favorite. I don't even know if it's a name that's really being considered. It's not the name that I was given. That was sort of the favorite in the in the front office and what they were sort of moving forward with. That doesn't mean that it hasn't come in, and maybe that's what slowed down the process too. I was told the real slowdown has been trademark things and probably just the massive number of things you have to do to change a name. But we'll see. It very well could be. It definitely is a fan favorite, though, if you look on Twitter, and and that came out of nowhere too. That was not what the fan favorite was, say, at the start of this process.
Les, thanks for your time and your insight. We appreciate it. We have a feeling it's going to be, a crazy time for you over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we can chat again.
All right. Hey, it was fun, guys.
Les Carpenter covers the Redskins for the Washington Post, and follow Les on Twitter very simply at Les Carpenter. And we've had a lot of texts this morning and people reaching out to us in our twitch.tv chat room about, hey, what do you know about this Redskins story? Quite frankly, it was why we booked Les. I mean, based on what we had heard 12 hours ago, the story was going to be in the Thursday edition of the Washington Post. Well, clearly that's not the case, because otherwise the story would be out. And oftentimes what happens is if it's in the paper, which is going to hit the newsstands at 5 a.m., it's then going to be put online. And it really just depends on the editors whether or not how much play they want it to get the night before. Do they want to try to build up sales for the paper the next day, et cetera? So usually you post it online just early enough so it can make the late evening news locally. So this way people hear about it, they get up in the morning, people are talking about it, and they run out and they buy the paper. So once Mark and I woke up this morning and there was nothing online, we're like, well, then it ain't in the paper this morning. So now we're all going to wait to see if it's being released online today for Friday's paper.
And if you are someone on Twitter, just go to the Explorer or the Trending and click on Dan Snyder and just start looking through, because I will tell you that the gifts that people are showing, the 30 for 30 folks waiting to see the story drop, and my favorite one, David, I have to just pick on you a little bit, not you personally, but your team, is the one gift said something along the lines of, really? Knicks fans? Dan Snyder's going to have to sell his team before James Dolan?
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. You all make a dadgum good point.
Right?
Yep. Miller and Moulton. Michael Gelkin will join us coming up at around 8:30. We'll talk Dak and the Cowboys and how they didn't work out a long-term deal, and is Dak beginning his Kirk Cousins exit from the Cowboys over the next couple years. Coming up next, today was the day when. Miller and Moulton, thanks for being with us on this Thursday morning on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All right. This is off the record, just for the folks in this room here. So I text Les already. Just said, thank you, Les. Can't wait to see what comes about. He responds, I mean, in seconds with just, it's crazy. Now, that's cryptic as hell right there. Because he knows more than he said. He knows way more than he said. And he kind of said so after he's, well, I don't really know. I can't really say it. He went from I don't know anything to I can't say anything else.
Well, and there's know it personally, and then there's know it as a reporter.
Right.
You know, to know it as a reporter means you know it well enough to print it, to put it online, to even tweet it out. I mean, a reporter worth their you-know-what is not going to tweet out a rumor. Not a reporter. Well, a sports talk show host will.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and reporters now do, and that's the problem.
Right.
That's why
right. What's fascinating is you have other reporters who have been tweeting out since late Tuesday about this story, even though it's not theirs and it's not their beat. Like Jason La Canfora, Tuesday afternoon, who's based in Baltimore and obviously works for CBS, but he does work locally in the Baltimore market. So obviously they pay attention to the Redskins. And Jason La Canfora said there's a bombshell that's going to come out.
A bombshell.
And I believe he used the words disgusting and disturbing.
Well, David, what I'm reading is disgusting. I mean, when you're talking about pimping your cheerleaders out.
But this is 2 days ago. You got to remember, he's a national football writer. Yes, he works locally in the Baltimore market and does a show on a local sports talk station, but he's a football guy for CBS. I mean, he's on their pregame show, for goodness sake. But he doesn't know the story well enough to report it. He's only hearing things. So he felt comfortable enough to gossip on Twitter, and others did as well, but they don't know the story. They've only heard bits and pieces of the story. But nowadays, in the TMZ era that we live in, you know, I'm actually surprised TMZ.
I was just going to say, and there you go. How in the F has TMZ, because they're the ones that have the Donald Sterlings and the Michael J. I mean, that's right up their alley.
And they'll do rumor. They'll do
what
rumor.
They are.
They'll put their name behind it, and they're right far more often than they make mistakes. Remember, TMZ was the bastion of journalism the day Kobe Bryant died.
Yes.
A, they had the story first. B, they were most accurate in terms of number of people on the plane, on the helicopter, etc. You know, they got one piece of information wrong in all the reporting that they did that day. And after initially breaking the story, they held off for the longest to make sure that what they next posted was right. These are some times we live in. They really are.
So I went on Facebook to see if there was anything on there on our page, and the first thing I see is my cousin who has this. So I can't believe what just happened. We got home from dinner, let the dogs out. We heard weird noises from the deck. Rod opened the door, and the dogs came barreling in full of blood with a raccoon. I was screaming while they all fought inside. I grabbed a mop, handed it to Rod, and rescued Sparty, that's one of her dogs, locked him in our room. Toby continued to fight, and the raccoon came at Rod. Eventually, we got it out of the house. The house is full of blood. Sparty is beat up badly. Plants are tipped over. Blinds destroyed. Good times. Holy plank.
Wow.
And that's in East Lansing, Michigan. It's not like they're out in the sticks somewhere.
Right. We're not in Colorado, and there's a bear on our porch.
Or Golden Gate, for that matter.
Right. But you know.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine a raccoon in the house without freaking the blank out.
Those things are nasty.
You're damn right they are.
Especially if you try to corner them. They come right at you.
It's coming right at us.
10 minutes before 8 o'clock. Miller and Moulton, thanks for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Our poll question today, which you can find on Twitter at @MarkMiller or @TheDavidMoulton or MillerandMoulton.com. Should there be a commissioner of college football? Yes or no? Right now, every conference has a commissioner, but there is no one to oversee the sport as a whole. Many feel with what is going on now during the pandemic that this shows the leadership that is missing and the uniformity and the consensus that is needed in a sport during times like this. And people are calling for college football to get a commissioner. Do you believe it needs a commissioner?
David
or should have one anyway.
David and I, for the record, both say no.
No.
We like the 1 foot in college football rules of life, that they act independently. It makes for more drama. The sport's based on drama and
hatred,
subjectiveness.
Actually. Angst. This sport, oxygen, is angst. If we get a commissioner, there goes the angst. I don't want uniformity. I want rivalries. I want angst.
And I'm all for a commissioner the moment that the Power 5 schools take their ball and leave and do their own thing, because then it becomes different. But for now, I'm with you, David.
Although I have to admit, can you give me a couple years where they're just like the 5 mob bosses? Could you give me like 3 to 5 years before we get somebody to actually rein them all in and call the summit? I mean, I think that'd be spectacular. Just 3 to 5 years.
And I love where your head's at, but it didn't work for the mob. And when the mob got the commission, the mob ran pretty smoothly for a while.
Well, that's true.
I mean, they had a good 50-year run.
Right. Well, one guy did take out the other 4, though, but okay. All right. On that bright and shiny note, 8 minutes before 8 o'clock. Time now for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
We start in 1935 in a moment that David Moulton still has not gotten off his chest to this day. David, who hates paying for parking, was in disgust because it was today in 1935 that the first automatic parking meter in the United States is installed. Oklahoma City, by the way.
Though, you need them, though.
Oklahoma City, by the way. I'm just having fun because you don't like to pay for parking.
I don't.
Well, you don't like to overpay for parking. You don't mind paying for parking. You don't like getting ripped off to pay for parking. Would that be a better way?
Yeah, I don't see why anyone should ever charge more than $5 to park. We pay enough for tickets and what we purchase inside. That's enough.
1936, the New York Giants are 10.5 back in the NL. They would go on to win the pennant. 1938, Paul Runyon wins the PGA. He defeats Sam Snead 8-7. It's the largest victory margin ever in the match play format. Now, I want you to just think about this. Beating Sam Snead 8-7 is kind of like beating Tiger 6-5.
Yeah, they played the PGA as match play, I think, into the 50s.
1941, Joey D goes 3 for 4, hitting in his 56th straight game. 1951, the novel Catcher in the Rye was published. 1956, the last Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus under a canvas tent, and the Tigers in Briggs Stadium sold for a then record $5.5 million. It was in 2004 that Martha Stewart did 5 months in prison plus 5 months in home confinement. And in 2017, Roger Federer wins Wimbledon for the 8th time. If you were born today, you share your birthday with the one and only Orville Redenbacher, born today in 1907. I would say David single-handedly revolutionized the popcorn industry. We were getting a lot of bad popcorn before that.
I was going to say, because my household was a Jiffy Pop, the little things that you put over the stove.
And you couldn't help but burn half of that.
Then I saw an Orville Redenbacher commercial, and I went, there's another popcorn. Who knew?
Ginger Rogers, born today in 1911. Former Michigan State head coach George Perlis, born today in 1934. Margaret Smith Court, won 24 Grand Slam singles titles. Born today in 1942.
Serena's still at 23, trying to catch her.
Jimmy Johnson, double sevens. 77 years old today for Coach Jimmy Johnson. Stuart Copeland is 68. Michael Flatley, Lord of the Dance guy, he's 62. Gary Anderson, the kicker, 61. Terry Pendleton, happy 60th birthday. Everybody go watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High today and understand that Phoebe Cates is 57 years old. Claude Lemieux, 55. Will Ferrell, 53. The great Barry Sanders is 52. Ed Kowalczyk, lead singer for the band Live, is 49. And Adam Scott is 40.
Wow. He's playing pretty well.
He is.
The last couple of years for a guy who's now 40. He's keep on keeping on pretty well. He's had a bunch of ups and downs in his career. Terry Pendleton, that's one of those names, really good player. Had some huge hits. MVP with the Braves in 91. Part of those Cardinals teams that went to the World Series in 85 and 87. Just a really good player.
Such a good hitter.
Switch hitter, too, and a terrific glove. Bonds would have won 4 MVPs in a row if it wasn't for Pendleton in 91. Bonds finished second that year. Really good player. Broke the Mets' heart in 87.
The fact that I had to mention Claude Lemieux on the show broke my heart a little bit.
Tell you what, in this shortened season, you could use a Claude Lemieux.
You could really use a Claude Lemieux. Much as I hate him, you could really use a Claude Lemieux.
Boy, Devils, Canadians, Avalanche, all he did was help teams win.
Team Canada,
yep.
He was a perfect international player too, because he could do everything. And what's his face from Boston right now? Bergeron.
Right.
Just a.
People often ask me, how did you grow my shower door so big and so fast? But the answer is...
with seed and water.
What we did is we took our family...
All right, I got to get a coffee.
We hired great talent, trained our staff, and developed
I
our
guess
product.
I'll stay.
Now, after 17 years, my shower door has...
Because we're not allowed to both leave. That's what we've been told by Twitch. One of us has to stay. We have to entertain you during the breaks.
And you want to see more, go to myshowerdor.com.
We miss our baseball. Getting baseball back on the field.
Come back and play kicking and screaming.
There will be baseball.
I'm a big fan of overtipping also.
And the marathon will be
After Mark shamed me all those years ago when I talked about I was a 22 to 25% tipper. And he said, that's not enough. You got to tip more. So I do.
Everybody does have a chance. We'll play
and I feel good doing it.
On Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
It is interesting the difference that just a couple bucks can make in terms of what the percentage of tip is. Makes you look a lot better throwing that extra few bucks down on the table. And the wait staff, they do remember who you are. You know the good tippers from the not so good tippers.
The savings that will allow you to celebrate better vision and a better life. Dr. Jonathan France and his expert team of surgeons want to help you see your future in 2020 through the advanced technology of laser
Especially
vision
now, a good
correction.
tip is
So what if you've been
appreciated.
told you're not a candidate
You know, it's
for
funny.
LASIK?
I haven't done Uber Eats. I haven't done any of those. I still go and pick it up. I think it's because I just desperately want out of the house. So I've never done Uber Eats or DoorDash, and I've got coupons for $5 and $10 off things.
Well, you need them because they charge you a boatload.
Yeah, I go and pick it up just to get out of the house.
I go and pick it up because it's just so much. If I feel like it, unless I've had a drink or something, it's just so much faster.
Well, and I also enjoy because then, I throw my satellite radio on and I get 10, 15, 20 minutes of something. So.
Oh, yeah, Seth. He was the Bill Lambier of hockey. There's no doubt.
Oh, you should have a soft spot for Claude Lemieux, Seth.
He does. He's one of Claude Lemieux, one of the greats. He said he's not one of the greats either.
Greats. You know what, though? His kid. The refs are all over his kid. There are a lot of people in hockey that believe that his kid, who I think plays for the Rangers, but that his kid does not get a fair shake from the officials, that they are looking at him.
Well, I wouldn't. I'd look
who
at him
his
too.
dad was.
Hey, by the way, the kid that played in Saginaw, he's going to be a top 10 pick. Do we want to get him on the show?
Sure.
He lived with my cousin. My cousin is part owner of the Saginaw team and billeted this kid. Basically, apparently, the only way he'd come to Saginaw is if he lived with Brandon. And I think the Wings are going to take him, but I can probably get him because he'll be, again,
top. The Wings are picking second.
They're picking fifth.
Oh, are they? Wow, they dropped all the way
fourth
to
or fifth. Oh, yeah, they got hosed.
Yes, they did.
I mean, badly.
Seth, Ken Danico, all-time great Devil. All-time great.
I think we've had him on the show, haven't we?
Ken Danico? I think we did a long time ago.
There's a Plumber. There's a great interview with McCarty and Lemieux. Find it on YouTube. It is sensational. Sensational. Tougher, Moulton, or Danico?
You're live.
Couple minutes past 8 o'clock, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We are Miller and Moulton on this Thursday, the 16th of July. Hope your week is going well. We thank you for spending a little part of it with us once again here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Make sure you go to millerandmoulton.com. If you miss any part of the show, you can download our Connecticut cast through millerandmoulton.com. You could also vote in our poll question there, which today is simply, does college football, should it have a commissioner? In your estimation? Right now, the conferences have a commissioner. The other sports, everybody answers to the NCAA. Nobody has to answer to anybody in college football except your conference commissioner. Does the sport of college football need a commissioner? There's a bit of a banging of the drum for it right now among some members of the national media, thinking that what's going on right now in this pandemic and the difference in conferences and scheduling, although we don't know if there's going to be differences. The SEC, ACC, and Big 12 have not announced what they're going to do. The Big 10 and Pac-12 have. But, Mark, one thing that came out of the SEC meeting on Monday, as was reported by Pat Forty on Sports Illustrated SI.com last night, is that the SEC is very much in talks with the ACC and the Big 12. For this reason, take a look at the schedules. Not just because the ACC and SEC play 8 games, but you've got the 4 big crossover non-conference games between them, or interconference, I guess. Obviously, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina. But you also have a handful of SEC Big 12 games that are on the docket this year.
Oklahoma,
LSU,
Tennessee.
Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma. And so there's those conferences are talking amongst themselves, the thought being, hey, we need to, maybe the 3 of us need to act in unison. And Pat Forty in his story last night was intimating that there's not a consensus amongst the SEC ADs, but the one that he thinks would get the most votes if they had to vote today is the 8+2 format.
By the way,
8 conference games, and then pick 2 non-conference games that you want to keep.
By the way, Texas is at LSU this year.
Right. Yeah, the return of the home and home.
Yeah, no, we missed that one. We've been talking about a lot of these games. I don't think we've mentioned that one this week. We kind of focused on Tennessee, Oklahoma. Well, Texas LSU is every bit of Tennessee, Oklahoma. That's all, just bringing that up. And you're right. Because the teams, too, it'll be interesting, but after last night's race, and we'll see what happens in and around Bristol. I don't know what type of any contact tracing that they will have. I'm guessing none. But the fact of the matter is there was 20,000 plus fans at a sporting event last night.
Yes, there was.
And if we don't see huge numbers spike in and around the Tennessee mountain area, and who knows where the hell everybody came from to go to the race last night. Because Bristol's not that easy to get to.
No, it is not.
And it's not that close to anything. So they were probably coming from Knoxville and Charlotte and,
And Virginia.
Right.
Which isn't that far away.
So, and really Atlanta. It's just a quirky spot. So what do? And if it goes successfully, as far as not an outbreak coming out from this, I think the college football people are going to look at that, particularly in the South, and go, okay, Bristol pulled this off. Outside. How many fans can we get in? And the +2 does this, David. The Big 12 may go +1 because they play 9 conference games.
Right.
So the other 2 conferences go +2. That means that the Alabamas and Georgia of the world get what? They get one good game that they might be able to keep, the Georgia Tech game in Georgia's case, but then they get to play a home game. That's what they'll all do with the other game. They'll get some sort of a gate.
Right. Now, it was brought up in Pat Forty's story that the threat of lawsuit is very much there, that if you're the group of 5 school and you're going to get left out in this scheduling, that the other 3 Power 5 conferences are going to figure out a way to just schedule amongst themselves. And you're the ones that are going to bear the brunt of this. Your guarantee games are going to go away. Your special games on your schedule, it would happen to UCF again. Don't they have 2 ACC games? Don't they have North Carolina and Georgia Tech on their schedule?
They do.
Right. And I have not heard any talk of those schools keeping UCF as part of their schedule. Now, maybe they would. But if they don't, if you're UCF, you're going to want your payday back. Of course, if you're the little school in the equation, you run the risk of none of the big boys ever calling you for a guarantee game again. But your literally economic survival may depend on getting that check. I mean, how many of these schools can afford that $1.5 million check not coming, especially this year? Remember, all of those schools didn't get from the NCAA basketball tournament what they thought they were going to get. They got 30% of what they thought they were going to get because the tournament didn't happen. Now, all of a sudden, your major football source of revenue is not happening either.
And and you wonder, David, and I'm sorry, you wonder if the out is, and I've thought this all along. Look, I know the SEC and ACC and Big 12 will cry poverty. We all know that's not the case. It seems to me that if you're going to this schedule, maybe it's not the full price, but you're going to have to buy these group of 5 teams off. Maybe you're not paying them the $1.5 million, but maybe you're giving them $500,000 to not play the game.
Well, all of these contracts do have buyouts in them. And like you said, if the guarantee's for $1.5 million, oftentimes the buyouts for $500,000. Is this how they're going to get out of it?
I think they have to. But, just starting to look at schedules more, trying to pay it. See, West Virginia plays Florida State. West Virginia doesn't want to lose that game. They've already lost Maryland. Well, so if that's their +2, because Florida's the one, we know that for Florida State.
Well, if you're Florida State, let's just say, obviously, you want to play the Florida game. Okay, you have to choose West Virginia or Boise State. Who do you play? Now, the game's supposed to be in Boise. Well, so for travel purposes, do you just say, well, I'd rather play West Virginia? But it's like Boise's a better team this year than West Virginia.
Right, but the West Virginia game's in Atlanta.
Right.
And Boise's not in the ACC. I mean, at the end of the day, if these 3 conferences are not in the Big 12, if these 3 conferences come to some sort of agreement.
Exactly. Boise's going to get left out. Yep. A group of 5 school, even one as prominent as Boise, is going to be left out. Absolutely. 479-5551 is how you can chime into the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551. So that's our poll question. And Mark touched upon something that I don't think's gotten enough play. But think about who was paying attention to the All-Star race in Bristol, Tennessee last night. And it's NASCAR, by the way. And we know most of you don't follow NASCAR. By the way, great paint schemes.
Did a couple of cool things. They allowed the paint on the doors to be different. The number always has to be on the door, and that's it. They allowed more advertising on the door, which I thought in some cases was really cool how they did it.
Yes. I liked it. I liked every single thing that they did for the race. And you would think a 54-year-old guy like me would not have liked it. They moved the numbers on the car. You'd think somebody like me would be screaming, about change. The other thing that they did, and it reminded me of Fox when they got the NHL in the mid-90s, they put, because the race was at night last night. And, there are a lot of things that are cool at night. Well, if you add more light, color in particular, a night whatever can look cooler. Well, they added a light in the back end of the car, and not a brake light either. It was under the car. And the color of your light depended on your car manufacturer. Ford cars had a blue light. All right. Chevy cars had an orange light. Toyota cars had a red light. And they did that in part so that the fans could know, for those that pay attention to that whole manufacturer thing, but they also did it as a help to the drivers, is that if you by chance needed to pick, now it's only a 2-lane track and it's a short track and the laps happen so fast, but if you actually didn't know who to draft with and you wanted to pick, you'd know, okay, red light, I don't quite know who that is yet, but I know that's just one of mine. That's a Toyota car. I can get behind it, see who it is. I loved it. I did. I absolutely loved it last night. It reminded me of the glow puck, and hockey fan freaked with the glow puck. But old NASCAR guy here, 54 years old, I loved all the cosmetic stuff that's done for your son. Everything that was done last night was done for your son, and I loved it all.
And I've not talked to him yet since the race, but on Monday he's the reason I knew the All-Star race was Wednesday, because on Monday he's like, I don't know what to tell you. I am fired up for the All-Star race. Okay. I like Wednesday night live sports on when nothing else is going on. So the race was on.
Now, it was on FS1, so it's not going to be as highly rated as the race normally is, which is normally on a Saturday night, and it's on Fox. So this is on a Wednesday night on FS1. The other thing that they did was, because the governor of Tennessee said, well, you can race at Bristol and not allow fans, while the governor of North Carolina because the race is always at Charlotte, the All-Star race, and the governor of North Carolina was like, well, I'm not going to allow fans, not in mid-July when you want to do this race. And so that's why they moved it to Bristol. Well, they've been talking about moving the All-Star race around anyway. I mean, think about it, Mark. Baseball moves their All-Star game around. Hockey, NBA, they move their All-Star game around every year. There have been people in NASCAR going, why do we keep racing at Charlotte? And it's a boring track, by the way. I don't like the Charlotte track at all.
It is. Well, it has the most boring race on the circuit, too. The 600's just a death march.
Right. It's still going on, actually. That's how long that race is. But I loved everything about last night, including the fact they had it at a different track. But as Mark mentioned, they had 20,000 people. Now, it's outdoors, and Bristol can hold about 140,000. In fact, if you look up when Tennessee and Virginia Tech played a game inside the Bristol Motor Speedway there, I think they set a record like 168,000 people or something like that. Now, they've taken out one grandstand area. They've made Bristol a little, not shorter, but less fans than what it used to hold a few years ago. But 20,000, I heard them, Mark, put it that way. I heard the fans last night.
By the way, 156,990 at the Vols Hokies game.
Think about that. 157,000 people at a college football game.
And they didn't, by the way, I think you heard it, David, because they even compacted the 20,000 in what looked to be between, basically the front straightaway. They didn't go all the way around with fans.
No, there's a place between turns 3 and 4 at Bristol where they didn't allow anybody to sit. So they made them somewhat compacted, but from a social distancing standpoint,
it seemed to look, like when I'm watching it, it's hard. And I didn't stick around for the whole race. I was exhausted yesterday, but when they showed the crowd just passing by, it looked like they had the crowd social distanced. Now, they weren't wearing masks.
No, nobody I saw on television was wearing a mask last night. But let's just say that capacity at Bristol's around $120. So they had a crowd in which it was like 1 out of every 6 was there. Well, baseball and football are talking about maybe we'll have 1/4 the attendance. So, okay. So what you saw at Bristol last night, in theory, would be in the ballpark, pardon the pun, of what you'll see at a baseball or football game as to what the fans will look like. They'll be a little more compacted at a football or baseball game if they go that route. But as Mark pointed out, I mean, if you're the PGA Tour, if you're baseball, you're football.
If you're the SEC, ACC, and Big 12, who are right now trying to figure out what to do that is not what the Big 10 and Pac 12 are doing, you had to be watching that race last night going, man, I hope the next week goes well for these folks. Because this is the first indicator. Now, I was shocked, David, that they didn't force them to wear masks. Not shocked. I was a bit surprised. It is Tennessee, after all.
Yes, and my guess is that it depends on the ownership of the track. And I don't know who owns Bristol. I don't know if NASCAR owns it or if it's an individual proprietor who owns it. But yes, I think we're all expecting in the NFL and Major League Baseball and in college football that if there are games played with fans, that our expectation is that fans are going to be required to wear masks. And if you choose not to go because of it, well, then you choose not to go because of it. But that is our expectation. Mark, do you think, because Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, said yesterday that it is still our hope to hold at least one event this year with fans. Do you think the PGA Tour will require their fans to wear masks? I do.
Yes. I do too. And by the way, David, it was 2 days ago, for the record, on July the 13th, that there are multiple stories of the PGA Tour saying they're having the rest of their events without fans.
Right, Monday. Yeah, it came out Monday and said no fans for the rest of the year. And then Jay Monahan at Muirfield yesterday goes, it's still our hope to have fans. Well, what the heck? Talk about mixed messaging that's going on right now. Hell, the PGA Tour can't get their own messaging straight. But how could they not be paying attention? But I was hell-bent on watching last night because I knew there were going to be fans.
Right.
And it just felt and sounded different to me. It just did. I could hear the fans. I really could. Now, I also thought it was interesting Fox did not have Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon at the track. DW was there because he was invited by the governor of Tennessee, and DW's not just a NASCAR legend, but he's from Tennessee. He's a Tennessee legend. If you're in the eastern part of the state in particular, he's got his name on multiple car dealerships. I mean, you see him from whatever major highway you're on. And so DW was invited to the race by the governor. And once Fox knew he was going to be there, they put him to work in the pregame, and he did his boogity-boogity thing, and then he sat in the governor's box for the race.
I love boogity-boogity.
I do, too.
I really do. No, and I think, and I said it to my wife last night watching, I said, I just love boogity, but Jeff Gordon is teaching me about racing. When I watch a broadcast with Jeff Gordon, I feel like I'm learning something, and I never felt that way with DW. I felt like I enjoyed listening to DW. He's a fun listen. He's excited. But he never taught me anything. Gordon, I feel like I'm learning about NASCAR when I'm watching it.
Kind of the difference between Vitale and Madden?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Vitale entertaining, Madden taught you, though?
And both are great. Yep. Both are great, but for the most part, when I'm watching a basketball game, I don't need a lot. To me, I don't need to be taught a whole lot. NASCAR, I need to be taught damn near everything. So anything that they're telling me, I find I'm a sponge because I'm starting to enjoy the sport more. And I'm putting a lot of it with Jeff Gordon because I think he's been terrific. And you're right. NBC coverage pales in comparison to what Fox does.
And Junior's good, but there's just not the energy. There's not the fun. There's just, it comes across as a lot more boring. I don't know how a NASCAR fan feels, but as somebody who is a NASCAR fan, I enjoy the One Network's coverage far more to the other. But the other major sports had to be paying attention. You know, and Mark, for that matter, now they won't do it because they've, you know, the MLS is back. They've one central location in Orlando. They've already announced the bubble and what have you. But, you know, you got to think, I mean, that's a sport obviously played outdoors. I mean, there's got to be a few of those MLS owners that are thinking to themselves, you know, we probably could have found a way to because most of them have their 20,000 seat soccer only place that they play in. And there had to be a few of them thinking to themselves, you sure we couldn't have had like 3,000-4,000, maybe even 5,000 at our own home?
Well,
places?
and for that matter, the Georgia governor doesn't give two blanks. They could have packed him into the Georgia Dome to watch that team play. He doesn't care.
Well, that will be interesting going forward for football games. Those that play indoors versus outdoors.
And what states do they play in? And I'm serious because the governor of Georgia basically just said I know we're crossing over here, but basically said if any community put a mask mandate in, it's not valid.
Right.
I mean, that's so I'm just applying that to sports. If you're in Georgia and you want to have an event, it seems that your state's all for you having an event right now.
If you are Florida State and West Virginia and you're supposed to play in Atlanta, would you be out of line? And obviously you'd have to break a contract with Mercedes-Benz Stadium and they would not be happy about this, but would you be out of line in saying we want to play the game at what used to be called Turner Field, which is where Georgia State football now plays their games? That, hey, we'll still do it. We'll meet halfway. We'll do Atlanta even.
But we're playing outside.
But we got to play outside. I mean, come on, it is a pandemic. I mean, why go inside when you can do the same thing outside?
Interesting, but on that note, I'm just going to flip you to another sport because we've been talking a little bit of golf, and now they said they want to have fans. Where is their last event held? Tour Championships at East Lake.
Atlanta.
Yeah. They're as open for business as Florida is.
Right. Well, there are some that believe that the next golf tournament that has fans at it's going to be Augusta.
That's been my belief.
In mid-November. I've always believed the U.S. Open was going to try to jam some people in because that's their big money maker. And while they get $93 million in television revenue from now Fox and NBC combined, all right, that it's a big money maker, and I thought they'd find a way at Winged Foot to jam a few people in there. But it is 30 miles north of New York City, and the state of New York right now, I believe Governor Cuomo, like the Bills right now, can't have fans at their games. I don't think they can have fans if they want to.
Correct.
Right now. So I'm guessing the U.S. Open falls under the same guidelines. The tennis U.S. Open has already announced they're not going to have fans.
By the way, the Rose Parade has been canceled. Not the Rose Bowl game, but the Rose Bowl Parade was canceled yesterday. Just something to pay attention to as we go forward.
And obviously, that's January 1st of 2021.
That's right.
Well, I don't think these secondary bowls are going to happen. There's still talk that the bowls are going to happen. Like when the conference commissioners, when Sankey's talking to the ACC and the Big 12, it's been brought up, do we expand the season 2 more weeks? Can we give us more built-in time? Can we somehow have 14 or 15 weeks to play these 9 or 10 games and push our conference championship game back as far as 2 weeks? But there is still thought that, hey, we're then going to have our bowl season. I don't believe that. I really don't.
The only thing I would say, David, is that a bowl season this year is very intriguing, particularly if we don't have a lot of non-conference games. I mean, just skip the pandemic for a second. Just talk to me pure football. We're playing conference games +1 in the ACC and SEC, or +2. They're playing 10 games. The Big Ten decides, hey, we're only playing conference games, and the Pac-12's already decided that. But now all of a sudden the Outback Bowl, Penn State against, I don't know, Auburn, I would be really intrigued this year.
Well, I thought because the Sun Bowl in El Paso is Pac-12 ACC. Well, I thought this would be a way for USC and Notre Dame to play this year. Now, obviously, both would be hoping they're playing in a quote-unquote better bowl, but there's a part of me that thinks, and maybe for legality purposes, do you almost have a wink-wink, nudge-nudge thing that unless one of you plays your way into the New Year's Six situation, well, you two can play this year like you always do. You'll just do it in El Paso.
And by the first of the year, where are we, pandemic-wise? Are we, we keep saying this. A month ago, there wasn't a worry about playing sports.
We were just starting to get worried a month ago. a month from today, we were just the numbers were just starting to go up.
Okay.
Again. But at the beginning of June.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, okay, 5 weeks ago then. 5 weeks ago, we were playing football. We all thought we were playing football. Even Seth Everett thought we were playing football.
Touche.
But now, every day that goes by, I've seen polls where is college football going to play a season on some national shows, and there were more no's than yeses.
Yeah, they're playing. I will stake. I don't have many dollars left. I will say that, but I will stake everyone I got left that they will try. They're going to start the season. All right. We'll see whether or not they can do it. Speaking of racing, IndyCar returns Friday in Iowa, and we'll have the race for you. We had the All-Star race last night on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, and we've got it for you Friday night, IndyCar racing, a pair of IndyCar 250s in Iowa, doubleheader weekend, and we'll have it for you here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. When we come back, Michael Gelkin, he covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. Dak and the boys did not come to a contract agreement yesterday. What do we think it all means? Michael Gelkin to talk about it next. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
And no, I did not see that story, Spits on Sports, but it is fascinating. Did you see this post he had? 15 jockeys tested positive at Del Mar, and they had to shut the track down.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's a jockey's room. It's an excellent point. It's basically what we've talked about with a position room in football. What happens when all the offensive linemen test positive?
We are Fox Sports Radio.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep your family safe all the time. It's
Regis, and I've got the Golf Channel on, because I thought they'd have early round coverage. So it's a Tiger thing, and Regis and Kelly bringing Tiger onto the show.
Wow.
And the single greatest change for men that get low T care.
Look at young Tiger. He hasn't started juicing yet.
And most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood
Listen to you.
Oh, come on. You don't think that guy juiced?
Oh, there's been a lot of rumors.
I remember telling you a story. Kessel was at the Hilton here, and Peter Gammons was there. And he bellies up to the bar with Gammons, and they bullshitted for an hour. And Gammons looked him right in the eye and says, "Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Tiger Woods is doing steroids, and everybody knows it."
I guess PGA Tour Live is going to be broadcast on the Golf Channel beginning at 10:30. So their streaming is going to be broadcast live beginning at 10:30, and then CBS's coverage picks up at like 3 o'clock.
Oh, they're giving us 4 hours of Peach. It's a great move that they're doing, David. They're giving you Thursday round coverage on PGA Live, and then
trying to get you to buy it for the rest of the tournament.
Well, and especially for Friday, because if you want to watch Tiger on Friday, the odds are that's your best way to see it.
Tiger in the morning Friday? Or is he?
I don't even know. Let me see here.
It's usually.
Yeah, they kind of just flip it. I'm just trying to get to the tee times here. Where is LT Gray?
Yeah, because for years, they always flip Tiger and Phil.
Right.
You know, one would be afternoon, morning. The other would be morning, afternoon.
But now they're doing something a little different, when it comes to, they've never done super groups like this either. With
the majors would do it, but right.
But they don't do it. But with crowds, there's no reason to. Tiger goes off at 1:17. So that means he'll play in the morning tomorrow. So if you want to watch Tiger tomorrow, you got to pay. That's exactly why they're doing this.
Well, and they did it also first tournament back at Colonial. They gave you, PGA Tour Live all day, and then you had to pay for it for Friday.
That's usually my minute and a half, right? Is that a minute and a half, Jiro?
It's summertime, so it's hot.
Say that again?
We about a minute and a half out?
Yes.
I've at least learned that when we run the sounder for Fox Sports, I'm pretty sure that's 90 seconds now, if I pay attention, which is shaky at best.
Yeah, you're about a minute right now.
Okay, perfect.
We're talking about taking Nate Burleson off Good Morning Football because apparently they're wanting to revamp their NFL Now They're like 7:00 at night show, which to them is their franchise show. And they're talking about putting Nate Burleson on it. I don't know. I don't think I'd mess with Good Morning Football.
No. Just don't take my girl off.
Yeah, well, that ain't happening.
Hello.
Michael, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Mark Miller and David Moulton in Southwest Florida. Thank you for your time as always. We appreciate it. Going on in about, 30 seconds we'll go on.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Especially that it's an hour earlier for you.
I know.
Well, don't make me have to be here. I'm actually in D.C. right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got anything on the Snyder story?
Oh, golly.
Wow.
He's such a good person. It'd just be such a
I know. It would devastate so many people.
Here we go, guys.
You're live.
Heading down the home stretch of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. The good, the bad, and the ugly in roughly 20 minutes' time. Michael Gelkin's kind enough to join us once again. He covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. You can follow Michael on Twitter at Gelkin NFL. That's Gelkin, Gehlken. Michael, thanks for your time. We ask everybody this in the last 4 months. How are you, your family? How's everybody holding up during all this?
Oh, I appreciate that. Doing well. Yeah, everyone, by and large, has been able to keep healthy, which obviously is a blessing. Canceled my wedding, which was supposed to be in a couple days. Yeah, but we instead did it a lot smaller with a very immediate family. I mean, my parents were able to attend, my siblings weren't, but overall, it was a really, really nice gathering. And most importantly, I'm married now, so just adapting with the times, which I have a feeling we're far from done doing as a collective society here.
Well, first and foremost, congratulations. And secondly, you and your bride will look back upon this in 3, 5, or 8 years with all the money that you didn't spend on this wedding and go, 2020 wasn't as bad as we thought. I'm telling you that. It might not seem like it now, but whether you buy the house or get a new house, you'll go, maybe not having that big wedding worked out okay for us as someone who has, spent a little bit of money on one of those once or twice.
Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate that. We've already discussed that, but I'm sure over time that'll only further be reinforced.
It will. Yesterday, I loved the Dan Patrick show. He dubbed it Dak Prescott Day because no matter what happened, Dak Prescott was a winner. I will say I don't know how much Dak won this morning when I see his brother going on Twitter and saying, I don't know how much longer I'm rooting for the Cowboys. I know I wouldn't want my siblings on Twitter talking about my contract. I'm guessing Dak didn't as well, but are you at all, was there any surprise at the end of the day that it ended up being the franchise tag? Did you think at all that there was a chance for a deal to get done?
No, not going into the day. If you were to ask me a few months earlier, did I think a deal would get done by July 15th? I think I was much more optimistic then. It was in part because of COVID-19. I think that complicates any major business dealings. I mean, around the league, we're seeing less player investments being made by owners. I mean, the Cowboys, last year they signed their final draft pick. I want to say May, maybe June. They haven't signed one of their 7 draft picks. Everything's just kind of slower. And in this climate, you're certainly seeing some teams, such as the Kansas City Chiefs, such as the Cleveland Browns, Tennessee Titans. I mean, there are contracts that can be done, but it only complicated things. And then when I spoke to a source on July 14th, so on Tuesday, one day before the deadline, they said that it was all quiet, that there were no conversations, no meaningful, productive negotiations between the Cowboys and Dak Prescott's representation, Todd France, CAA. Knowing that, it just didn't seem like we were building toward a deal. It seemed like we were building toward a $31.4 million franchise tag. We could very well be building to that 20% increase that Dak Prescott would experience in 2021 if he is tagged again. And then, you accomplish that, and it's a bit of a Kirk Cousins situation where you've accumulated a lot of guaranteed money in a 2-year span, and then you can decide what next. Is it the Cowboys? Is it someone else?
Oh, yeah, because Dak would make 37 and change in 2021. So Dak would make about $69 million over his 2 years under the tag with the Cowboys, which would put him in the upper echelon, to say the least, of what NFL quarterbacks are going to get in the next 2 years. We're talking with Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News. Michael, we've heard two things. We heard, A, that Jerry's offering 5 years. Dak only wants it to be 4. But that for the most part, they've agreed on the money, roughly $35 a year. And we've also heard that, secondly, that Jerry maybe offered Dak, hey, if you really want to go short term, then I'll give you 3 years, $100 million. Okay, either one of those two things true?
Well, I know if the Cowboys were to do a 5-year deal relative to the 4-year deal that Dak Prescott's agent was pushing for during this negotiation, the APY would have to be a lot higher because if you're going to add a 5th year, you're adding a 5th year at a time when the salary cap is projected to experience real meaningful growth following the March enacted collective bargaining agreement, where we're having more games being played. We're having a higher percentage of the pie that players are collecting in terms of shared revenue. And we have gambling, we have TV, we have all these instruments that are expected to push the salary cap aggressively in the future. And so if you are Dak Prescott's agent and you're adding another year to the contract, the value really needs to shoot up. And so I think if there was going to be a 5-year, if Dak Prescott was going to agree to that structure, the money had to be a lot more serious than what it was in their view. And they, I think they are well aware of some of the advantages of playing under the franchise tag. I think Kirk Cousins demonstrated for the world a couple of years ago. He's been the highest compensated player in the NFL over the past 5 years because of the way he played it. And so it's all about timing, where you want to time up the market. And I just don't think the timing really met, where there were two sides here who genuinely wanted to get a deal done. Things are far too quiet for far too long for two parties that were both eager to get a deal done. You can't just be the Cowboys who want to get a deal done. It's got to be both. And I think ultimately there just wasn't that mutual interest.
Do you think at all that the Cowboys, one, are in the right with this, and two, do you think that they're never going to budge on the length of contract? Is that part of them maybe not thinking Dak's a long-term answer?
I believe that they believe that they think. I believe that they believe that Dak Prescott is their long-term answer. At this point, they've seen a lot of him. They've seen who he was when they drafted him on day 3 of the draft, and his progression. I mean, first of all, he steps in and is instant leader in your locker room, and he wins football games as a rookie. He impressed everyone in the building. He top down, and then over the course of time, and I began covering the Cowboys in August of last year, and so some of what I'm discussing is a bit of institutional knowledge I've been able to borrow from colleagues at the Dallas Morning News. But one thing I've been able to see with my own eyes is the jump, where I was hired in August. I'm watching film, tape from 2019 or 18 season. I'm watching this last August, and then I, attend some practices and watch games, and his mechanics are so much better than they were, the first few seasons of his career, and his command of the offense is so much better. And then you see the leadership. It's all there. I mean, the progression is there. You can win with Dak Prescott as your quarterback. Is he a top tier quarterback in the NFL? That's not fair relative to guys like Patrick Mahomes, and others. But he is very much ascending. He plays at a high level. He deserves a new contract, a contract that the Cowboys want to pay him, but they just couldn't get there ultimately. And sometimes that can happen. But I don't. The Cowboys wanted this to happen. They wanted it to happen long ago, and just because it didn't, you can't just pin that on Dak Prescott. You can say that the Cowboys should have been more aggressive with their talks, which would include before the 2019 season ever began, and Dak Prescott had the season of his NFL career.
Michael, do you think there's any, and this makes it sound more dramatic than what I think it would be, but is there any bad blood, bad feelings beginning to form in this relationship, or are both sides just saying, "Hey, it's business. I love you. Oh, I love you too. We want you to stay. I want to stay." But it's just business, or now are we at the point, because Jerry's a guy who does deals. I mean, look at all the guys on the team. 2 guys on the offensive line, the linebacker, his running back, his wide receiver. I mean, Jerry throws money around. It's strange that of all the players at all the positions, that he hasn't done a deal with his quarterback. So if you're Dak and his people, I could see where maybe this would start to annoy you.
I suppose so, and I think there's a chance of that. I think if there is an annoyance, it's probably on that side. But at the same time, I have been following how well Dak Prescott is protected in terms of he's got an insurance policy in the case of injury. He's, as part of the nature of being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, it affords you a lot of business opportunities. Dak Prescott is extremely active at taking advantage of those off the field business opportunities that being a Cowboys quarterback allows him to. And so I think he's okay from a financial standpoint, even though he's been massively underpaid over the course of his rookie contract. I do believe that Todd France and that team there has been in the driver's seat, and they understand Dak Prescott's worth. They understand the market realities in terms of where the league is trending from a salary cap standpoint, with a bit of a caveat to acknowledge the COVID-19 uncertainty that isn't to be overlooked. But overall, I think everyone that I've spoken to around the league is still very bullish on what the league salary cap looks like in 5 years. Maybe it doesn't have the growth happen as rapidly over that span because of the NFL and NFLPA borrowing from future years to keep the 2021 salary cap afloat. But overall, the future is bright in the NFL. And with the franchise tag this year, potential franchise tag next year, if a deal again can't be done, I think Dak Prescott, his agent, they together have positioned themselves well to take advantage of that.
All right. The future does look bright, but the immediate future. Are we going to start, in your opinion, are we going to start on time with the NFL season this year?
In my opinion, I think here's what comes to mind. I remember covering the Chargers, and North Turner had been let go, and he held a press conference, and the Chargers had experienced a run of success that always seemed to fall short, ultimately in the playoffs. But they'd been successful until they weren't. And North Turner at a press conference said, whoever this new head coach is, whoever comes in and replaces me, I hope there's an understanding of where this team is today and all the work that would need to be done in order for it to achieve success in the short term. Like if the team goes into the playoffs next year, everyone should appreciate all the work that took and kind of realign your expectations to that effect. To me, that's where we are today in COVID-19 world. We're talking about coming back to football and training camps opening this month, and potential preseason games, if not canceled outright, happening in August. We're talking about that because it's that time of year in a football calendar. Like, we're programmed to be thinking about training camp in July. We're programmed to look ahead to preseason games in August and regular season and preseason. If we were operating purely on this pandemic timetable and its schedule in terms of where we are as a country at combating that pandemic, we're not talking about football right now. We're not there. Testing capacity has been poor in terms of results, reliable results, at an acceptable turnaround rate. We don't know what the economics look like between the NFL and NFL Players Association. We don't know exactly how we're going to be protecting players 100%. We just really aren't there, in my view. So I would be surprised if football happens on time, and if it starts, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an interruption to the season. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, and collectively, to hark back on what North Turner said, I do believe that that's where our expectations should be. We should realign our expectations, and if everyone is able to pull off a season on time and a complete season, let's all acknowledge how difficult that would be.
Michael, congratulations once again on your nuptials. Stay safe, all the best, and we look forward to talking to you again down the road.
My pleasure, guys. Stay safe.
Michael Gelkin covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. Follow Michael on Twitter, Gelkin NFL. That's Gelkin, Gehlken, Gelkin NFL. Michael Gelkin joining us here on Miller and Moulton. I think that we, as fans, would go down the road that Michael just laid out once the next shoe drops. You know, if you think about it, if you're a football fan right now, nothing's been canceled. All the other sports have had to, change and adapt on the fly. But from college football to pro football, I mean, nothing, we had a draft, we had a combine, you name it. Just the only thing that hasn't happened is mini camps. Fans don't give a rat's, what about that?
Nope.
And fans don't care about preseason games either. I mean, September 10th, Texans are supposed to be in Kansas City to play the Chiefs.
Spring football games getting canceled bums out the college football fan a lot. Because if you're a diehard Florida, Georgia, Bama, especially in the South, David, you get into that game and you're starting to put your own depth chart together based on what happened in the spring game. So I think the college football fan was bummed out by no spring game. But that's the only thing that was canceled. That and minicamps, like you said, and nobody cares about minicamps.
No. And I even think that, I would quibble with you a little bit. I think only the diehards, the absolute diehards of college fans would care about the spring game.
Well, that's exactly what I said, the diehard. Yeah. But there's a lot of diehards.
Absolute diehards, yeah. So
because there's more of them now than there was. There's just more information. The games are on. If you're an Ohio State fan, you watch your spring game. They do. They're nuts. That's what they love.
But I think, in Big Ten and Pac-12 fan, and I know we got a break here, but I think, they're disappointed that they're not going to play full 12-game seasons. But if they get 9 out of it, I think the college football fan, I can live with that. For goodness sakes, we're going through a pandemic. I can live with it. I think college football fan can live with no playoff this year. I think for 1 year, I do. I think college football fan could live with if for whatever reason we don't have a playoff, we don't have bowl games, that we for 1 year have to do it the way we used to do it forever, which is we just kind of vote on a national champion. I actually think college fan would roll with the punches for a year. No?
You're doing this to me at 8:47?
No, just like
do we have to do a bonus hour on Twitch with this? Because I'm fired up right now. I think you're crazy.
I think it could be tomorrow's poll question. Today's poll question is, does college football need a commissioner? Yes or no?
Tight race, David. Tight
Really?
race, yes.
That's good. We've had a few blowouts this week, so it'd be nice to have a close one.
We've had nothing but blowouts. No, 52% of the vote right now.
All right. MillerandMoulton.com. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter. That's where you can go to vote. The good, the bad, and the ugly. As we put this Thursday, July 16th show to bed, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program. This is the Dan Patrick Show. We all see more positive signs that Kaepernick could be back in the league soon. I'm just trying to figure out, hey, do we want Colin Kaepernick? Do we think he can play? How about we talk to him? Why are we talking to his friends or associates? How about we just talk to him? Colin, it's the Baltimore Ravens. Just want to see, do you want to play?
I do think, by the way, too, I think we could probably get the guy that's running the big lead now whenever we want. Kyle Koster or whatever his name is.
Oh, okay.
He's a Michigan State guy. He started following me on Twitter a while ago. Anytime I ask something, he answers. I've asked him a couple questions here and there just about something. He's always answered.
Do you remember we had a lawyer from the East Coast on a couple times, Darren Heitner?
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter.
Okay. He is the guy. There's a guy in D.C.
Yes. He's following the trademark guy.
All the trademarks.
Yes.
Heitner's his lawyer.
Okay. Heitner, want to get him on tomorrow?
Yeah. I thought interesting because this guy apparently is not trying to cause the Redskins problems. The guy's like, he has his reason for why he bought him up. Okay. But apparently he's already reached out to the Redskins and said, hey, if you want any of these, I'm cool with that. I'm not trying to hold you up for a king's ransom here, but he's apparently for years just been acquiring all these trademarks.
Well, that's what you've got to go back. If I find it on YouTube, I'll send it to you. That last week tonight John Oliver story when he starts buying up trademarks that the UFC have let go. It was laugh out loud funny. He's back this week too, and I can't wait. Coming from the white void.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank.
So I'm watching a commercial right now for Repo Joe, which made me think of Trader Joe. And apparently second time that the Page Field Plaza there in Fort Myers has denied, like Trader Joe's wants to.
Wait a minute, I thought it was done.
No, it got rejected earlier this week.
You're kidding me.
No, second time.
Good. Move further towards me because I like Trader Joe's, and that's a way too long of a drive for me.
And no reason was given. So,
well, that little plaza does not have a lot of parking. I know that plaza, David. And Trader Joe's needs parking.
Wait a minute. Isn't that the?
I thought it was that Pagefield Commons with others.
Toys R Us there in the Pagefield.
Oh, it's that one. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I thought. I could be wrong. Could be the other.
No,
side
you're
of the street
right. I thought it was the one just before that, just to the south of that. But if that's it, I thought it was that bigger strip mall with all kinds of crap in it. But you may be right. If it's that one, because Toys R Us is gone, that would be the spot it's going into, right?
Right. That's what I'm assuming.
Okay. Yeah,
so
that's
if I have
perfect.
the wrong spot. That's on me.
That's perfect.
Right.
It's way too far for me. I would like it a lot closer to Daniel's.
And apparently, it got voted down. Which, I mean, nowadays, I don't know.
That's right. I got to figure out how I got to make a point here in the next couple of weeks to go to that restaurant depot and get signed up so I can go in there. Because essentially all you have to have is an LLC, and I can go in there with Miller and Moulton LLC. And
buy your food?
And you basically are getting crap in bulk, but
Right.
it's cheaper than Costco. Now, you better have a freezer.
That place on 41?
Yeah, I've been in there. It's hilarious. Because I tried to sell them when I did that stone crab thing. I was trying to meet with them to get our stone crab in there. And it's a restaurant shop there. So you can get.
Right.
I mean, if you want 6-7 pounds of cheese, that's your place.
Southwest omelet, biscuit, and burrito are back. Only at Hardee's. Feed your happy. Limited time only at participating Hardee's restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
From the best headlines.
The best.
To the worst.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody ever.
Prepare yourself and hide the women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
Your life.
For the good today, we go to Wyoming, and I don't know if you've seen this story. It is an amazing story. Bridger Walker's a 6-year-old boy. His sister, I believe, is 3 or 4. 4-year-old sister. A 1-year-old German Shepherd charged his sister. And instead of running off, he got in the way. And the dog went to town on the 6-year-old. He required over 90 stitches. When his father asked him why he jumped in between his sister and the dog, the kid's 6, and just listen to this. If someone had to die, I thought it should be me. That doesn't stop you in the tracks. I don't know what will. The kid is a huge Captain America fan. And the gentleman who played Captain America did a video and sent it to him, congratulating him on his hard work. Absolutely amazing story by this young kid. It just breaks your heart to see his face, but even better to see what he was able to pull off. For all of you parents out there, thank you. Chris Evans, Captain America. Thanks, Seth, for sticking around all the way till the end of the show, because if it's a Captain America reference, I need Seth Everett for it, because I wouldn't know in a million years who played him. For the bad, we'll go to New York, but this could be happening anywhere. If you are parents of teenagers that may like to do things that they aren't supposed to do until they're 21, be careful, because it has been reported that children are putting their masks on. dressing as grandmothers in order to buy liquor and not get carded. Someone wants to say this generation's not innovative. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, because this isn't a fake ID. It's a fake person. That is going the extra mile for your booze. Be on the lookout, mom and dad, if they're stealing grandma's dress before they go out.
You got that right.
Finally, the ugly. We go to Colorado, where rumors of Black Death have hit Colorado.
What?
No one wants to hear about it, but the bubonic plague that started in the 1930s and was the deadliest pandemic in human history, well, maybe making a comeback. Officials in Colorado confirmed that a squirrel tested positive for the bubonic plague. Stay away from squirrels. That, David, is the good, the bad, and the ugly. On this July 16th, this is 2020.
You know, I don't know how much more we can handle. You got to be honest. I mean, our stress level's a little higher than we'd want right now. I mean, you can't be throwing that at us. I mean, you know, it's bad enough. We're good. You know, at some point we're supposed to get a second wave from this pandemic. It's supposed to, you know, join up with flu season. Now you just threw in a plague, for goodness sakes. I know it's animals. I mean, wasn't there a thing a month or so ago? There's this thing out there eating all the bees. Okay, and we need the bees.
We need the bees. The bees are very important.
And all that. And so
bees and turtles, David.
Right. Just who knew? Okay, but so we got a plague in Colorado. We got these in the Pacific Northwest. These things that are eating all the bees.
We got walking sharks, David.
Walking sharks.
Walking sharks. Sakes. I mean, this is 2020.
I mean, man, oh man, we really got to start checking what's in our food. I mean, something's going on here. Unbelievable. I mean, for goodness sakes, I don't think Bryson DeChambeau is the only one that looks a whole different from before the plague and after. Man, oh man. Speaking of which, they're playing golf, and you can watch it beginning at 10:30 this morning on the Golf Channel. This whole Golf Pass Live, or whatever the heck it's called, that they want you to sign up for and pay for their streaming. They're going to give you 4 hours of it today free.
They'll want you to pay tomorrow when Tiger tees off early.
Exactly. Got to pay tomorrow for Tiger, but today you'll get Tiger for free.
Tiger free today, pay tomorrow. That is the way that PGA Live works, and they're already underway at Murfield. Tiger, Koepka, and Rory playing together.
You know, if there were fans, there might have been a few people following that group. And again, if there were fans, they never would have put that group together.
Got that right. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for listening. We'll do it again tomorrow right here on Fox Sports Radio. Seth, thank you. That was awesome. Good save.
See you guys tomorrow. You guys have a good day.
Jiro, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my messages stopped coming through.
Low viewership today in the chat room. A lot more yesterday. Seth, you brought so much more to the show yesterday by being on. You were a big hit. A big hit.